Do the trashy pulp novels of the world have anything to offer? Are bestsellers all they're cracked up to be? Here at Terrible Book Club, we explore whether you really can judge a book by its cover, or its ridiculous synopsis. You ever passed a book and thought, ugh, who's reading this? We probably are. Welcome to episode 202 of the Terrible Book Club. I'm Chris, and this is Paris.
Hello.
And this is our recurrent guest, Mary.
Hello, everyone.
You may remember Mary from the episode where she and I discussed the novelization of E.T., or the time we all experienced the German postmodernist play, Die Hamlet Machine. Well, this time we read The Phantom of Manhattan, by Frederick Forsyth, a sequel to The Phantom of the Opera written for reasons. It's not the musical sequel, which was called Love Never Dies, I think. Am I correct on that?
Correct. I mean, it's the sequel to the musical, not the sequel to the book. There's a whole foreword about how Gaston Leroux was like a hack, and that story is not real, and Andrew Weber wrote the only good version.
Sure.
So this is a novelization of Love Never Dies?
No. Here, quick backstory. This
please explain. I'm confused.
Yeah, okay. No, this novel came out first, and I think Andrew Lloyd Webber and Frederick Forsyth are friends. Either way, he basically wrote this as a favor to Andrew Lloyd Webber. And Andrew Lloyd Webber was like, I want these things in the story. Go write it. Frederick Forsyth did. Lloyd Webber didn't love it, but it was published anyway. So this is basically a totally separate thing to the musical, which we can get into later. But it was published. Frederick Forsyth is a well-known British author. He writes lots of stuff, apparently. I've never written any of his books, or read any of his books. But yeah, he wrote this as a favor.
You've never ghost-written any Frederick Forsyth.
Mary is Frederick Forsyth.
Trying to drum up business for the sequel novelization that you wrote.
I wish I had his money, but no.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay, if this is your first time listening to the show, what we do here at the Terrible Book Club is read books that we assume will be bad based on their cover, title, summary, or some combination of the three. Sometimes, like today, we read books that our patrons, listeners, or friends, like Mary, recommend. So we do the opposite of what most people do in a bookstore or while they're browsing the internet. Usually this experiment results in a disappointing read, but once in a while we end up liking the book. In addition to our usual barnyard language, today's episode includes discussion or mention of accidents leading to physical disfigurement, guns, and murder. All the fun stuff happening here. Okay, so I'm going to read sort of the Amazon/back of the book summary, the thing that is printed to get you to buy the thing.
Yeah, like if you're in a bookstore and you happen to see this and pick it up and turn it over, Who
does that anymore?
Well, I mentioned that because we're going to come back to that much later in the episode.
Okay. All right. The back of the book, or the Amazon page, says, "The stunning continuation of the timeless classic, The Phantom of the Opera. In The Phantom of Manhattan, acclaimed best-selling suspense novelist Frederick Forsyth pens a magnificent work of historical fiction, rife with the insights and sounds of turn-of-the-century New York City, while continuing the dramatic saga which began with Gaston Leroux' brilliant novel The Phantom of the Opera. More than 2 decades have passed since Antoinette Guéry, the mistress of the Corps de Ballet at the Paris Opera, rescued a hideously disfigured boy named Eric from a carnival and brought him to live in the labyrinthine cellars of the opera house. Soon thereafter, his intense unrequited love for a beautiful chorus girl set in motion a tragic string of events, forcing him to flee Paris forever. Now, as she lies dying in a convent, Madame Geary tells the untold story of the Phantom and his clandestine journey to New York City to start anew, where he would become a wealthy entrepreneur and build the glorious Manhattan Opera House, all so he could see his beloved, now a famous diva, once again. But the outcome of her visit would prove even more devastating than before, and yet would allow the Phantom to know for the first time in his brutal life the true meaning of love.
It's Madame Geary.
I'm sorry, I can't speak the French sounds, Paris. As soon as I read that, I was like, she's going to be up my ass about that immediately.
Yep, here I am, entering the colon.
I think I have a more pressing issue with this summary, which is that it is incorrect. This is not, we'll get it. This is not an accurate reflection of the plot of this book, but we'll get into it.
Yeah, no, you're right. He
doesn't build the opera house for Christine. He builds it for separate petty reasons.
Exactly. He builds it for Mammon, ostensibly. But by the way,
Mammon's mad at him about this. Anyway, we'll get into this.
You're right. You're right. Mammon was like, this isn't the stock portfolio we agreed to.
I know this story. Don't even worry. Keep going.
My other question is like, what insights did we get into turn of the century New York City? Because my insights were fucking zero, other than maybe, was there an area where people just slaughtered fish and lived in huts? Was that a thing on Coney Island?
Sure. Why? I didn't see the documentary, so I couldn't say.
That's okay. We can just turn on Gangs of New York, right? That's a historical film.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Speaking of which, I'll also bring this up a few times, but I listened specifically to the audiobook version of this, which I cannot recommend highly enough. Seriously, if you're on a long, boring road trip and you like audiobooks, this is the audiobook for you. Every character gets a different voice actor, and each one is amazing.
Wow. High production value.
Oh,
yeah,
my God.
Especially incredible. It's on cassette. Mary has the cassette.
It is on cassette. It is available on Audible. So if I don't have Audible, I just need to find a cassette player.
Yeah, so if you don't have a 1993 Chevrolet with a tape player in it that
I
you're
used to.
in.
The amount of times I've listened to this book on road trips is many. But the guy that plays
is the cassette like all warbly and lo-fi now? Can I sample it for like some,
maybe?
like,
Yeah, absolutely. But the New York Reporter in particular, chef's kiss.
Yes.
I tell you guys, there are times when being a reporter in the fastest hummingest city in the world is the greatest job on earth. Okay, we all know that there are hours and days of foot slogging and nothing to show for it. Leads that go nowhere, interviews rebuffed, no story, right?
Yeah, the New York Reporter chapter, honestly, was one of the things that made me go, okay, maybe this author can kind of do a writing. All right.
He's got a nose for news.
All right, so we already started talking a little bit about the characters and the setting. So as we already stated, we are in turn of the century New York City. What is it, 1910?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that we get an exact year.
When was the Balkans? When was the Balkans War?
Good question. Wikipedia. When was the Balkans?
Paris. Every single chapter has a date it's an exact date at the top of every chapter.
Oh well, there you go.
Chris,
didn't pay attention to that part.
Chris, sometimes I just don't like the books and don't pay attention.
You gave me shit for not reading prefaces and forwards and like acknowledgments and shit, and you're not reading chapter titles with clear dates.
No, we've talked about this before. I fucking hate chapter titles. I think they're silly and useless.
Okay, 1906. Got it. We're in 1906, people.
All right, well, it's huge. In my edition, it's huge. It's like November 6th, 1906 at the very beginning. So it's 1906 to 1907
I don't know what year this is.
When most of this is happening.
All right, it's 1906 to 1907. I woke up when we were supposed to start recording today, so I am not firing on all cylinders. Only got a few cylinders in this rotary engine here. Okay, so we are in New York City in 1906 to 1907-ish. Our characters are Eric Moulheim, the Phantom of the Opera. He's just kind of the 1906 Jeff Bezos though in this, so it's not really as cool.
Yep. Actually, he's more like Elon Musk because he fancies himself an inventor. Yeah. I'd go with Elon Musk.
You're right. You're right. Yeah, I take that back. He's more 1906 Elon Musk in New York City. And then we have Christine Deschamps, who used to be Christine Daae, the opera diva, and Eric's true love, as the book wants us to believe. There's Darius, Eric's corporate assistant and Mammon worshiper, who pulls Eric into the cult of Mammon, a real thing that happens in this book. Antoinette Giry, Madame Giry, who was Eric's caretaker when he was young and was the head of the ballet group at the Paris Opera House in the original Phantom of the Opera production and book, I guess. I actually don't remember if she's in the book.
She is in the book. She's not the head of the ballet, though. She's just like a dumb usher.
Oh,
it's very weird.
Yeah.
But she is in the book.
Yeah. Artistic changes. Raoul Deschamps, Christine's husband, the hot vicomte that she ends up marrying instead of the Phantom in the first one. Pierre Deschamps, Christine and Eric's son. Dun, dun.
Spoiler.
Yeah, they whoops, he fucked her once and impregnated her. We've got that trope going today. Father Joe, what's his last name? Father, it starts with an F. Kilfoyle? Joe Kilfoyle, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Joe Kilfoyle, who is the Irish priest and minder of Pierre, the son, even though Pierre's 12 at this point? Is that right?
A tutor. I mean, they're rich.
Tutor.
He has a traveling tutor.
Yeah, they're super rich. And then, as aforementioned, we've got Mammon and the Lord Jesus Christ himself. They both make appearances. So in the reality of the Phantom of the Opera, just in case you are wondering, Jesus is real and also Mammon is real. So this is what we're working with here.
And Jesus acknowledges the existence of Mammon. Wild stuff, guys.
Yes. Yeah. It's really, really takes a left turn in that part of the book. All right.
You forgot my favorite character on this list
of
characters. You forgot Charles Bloom, the reporter.
Charles
the New York
Bloom?
City reporter.
He's the reporter.
Yeah.
Right.
I left him off because he's inconsequential to the plot. He's just a point of view.
Oh,
that's
kind
of why I
narrates
left
so
him out.
much of the audiobook, though. It's amazing.
Yeah, he's the way that we see everything. He's kind of our big spyglass because he just happens to fall into all these important parts of the plot. And there's a few other reporters and random other point of view characters that aren't as important. But yeah, Charles Bloom. Thank you, Mary. How could we forget Charles? Charlie Bloom.
He doesn't matter because he's not part of the plot at all. He's just a pair of eyes.
No, you see, someone handed him a cloak once, therefore he's integral. All right, well, Chris wrote a summary of the basic plot points. I'm sure Mary will correct and add things that we've forgotten.
I will. You know it.
But this is just so you listening at home can just sort of have a basic understanding of what we're about to talk about when we get into what we liked or didn't like about the book. So that you don't have to suffer through this book. Although you could, at Mary's suggestion, suffer through the audiobook, I suppose.
Good. It's very short.
All right. Antoinette Giry is dying, and she must get a last message out before she croaks. She once took care of Eric Mulheim, a.k.a. the Phantom of the Opera, and helped him escape to America after the events of the first story. She hires a man to cross the damn ocean and find Eric somewhere in New York, since she's at this point lost track of where he is. Eric's actually doing just great. Once he got to America, he worked on Coney Island with other people, cleaning and gutting fish. He makes enough money to have a leather mask made for him. Wait, there's a leather mask?
Yeah. It's when he's a... So I think it is actually important to mention that he jumps overboard because he naturally doesn't want to go through Ellis Island since he is a murderer, technically. And he swims ashore and he's wearing only his rags and he comes up on the beach and he shows his face to the first group of people around a fire he sees, expecting scorn and hatred because of his, terrible birth defect or whatever, that nonsense. But when he realizes everybody at that fire is damaged in some way, he has found his tribe.
It's true.
And he does. He scams enough people that he's able to get a really nicely made clown mask for himself so he can wander around Coney Island pulling scams on tourists.
Okay, so that's the thing. I remember the clown part. I don't know why the leather part threw me off. All right.
Yeah,
anyway.
I think he also makes a somewhat human flesh-looking leather mask that if you're in the dark and you pass him quickly, maybe you wouldn't look twice. Yeah.
All right, so he earns enough money with these people to have a mask made for him, and then he meets Darius, another fish gutter who I guess we don't really know why he's amongst these people because he doesn't appear to have any sort of, physical abnormalities.
Is in his soul.
Right, yeah, that's what we grow to learn. So they join forces, and together with Eric's newfound ability to move more easily in the daylight without being cast out, the two run scams and make a ton of money. Then they are able to pretend to be amusement park ride designers in order to meet with a developer who's building a park on the island. Except Eric actually has the skill in this area due to the whole, Phantom of the Opera on his resume. So they make a bunch of rides and they broker a very smart deal where they get a percentage of ride profits instead of a flat fee. That's how you do it, folks. Eric does this again for another developer, fixes a couple of boxing matches with Darius, makes some ace investment decisions in the stock market, and all of a sudden, he's the richest man in town, holed up in a penthouse dedicated only to making more money. That is, until he receives the message from Madame Giry. Turns out, that lawyer guy she sent across the ocean found him. Suddenly, he's now investing money into building a new opera house with Oscar Hammerstein, and Darius becomes worried about his inheritance since he's Eric's only friend. After an honest-to-Satan chat with Mammon, Darius is on the lookout for any further threats to his future fortune. Eric anonymously persuades Christine Deschagny, his former love, to star in a production at his new opera house. Christine is wooed by the quality of the music and the libretto and arrives in New York with her husband Raoul and son Pierre, although Raoul actually isn't there until the very end.
Yeah, he
and
comes
son
later.
Pierre, as well as his tutor, Father Joe. She is delivered a gift, which is a musical toy monkey. When Pierre opens the back of the monkey and messes with the mechanisms inside, which is a totally normal thing for a child to do, he flips a small disc that triggers another song, Masquerade, a piece of music Christine knows was written by Eric. She demands to go to the toy shop on Coney Island that sells the toy monkeys. It's a whole special thing since the island is usually closed this time of year because it's winter, but Eric has enough money and influence to get it to open up for the day, as well as the Hall of Mirrors amusement.
Well,
Christine has Pierre... He
owns this particular part of it. Yeah, he can do whatever he wants.
It's a whole special thing. Yeah, it's a whole special thing since the island is usually closed this time of year, but Eric owns it, so they open up. And Christine has Pierre flip every disc and every monkey toy, and when no others play the Masquerade song, she has proof of Eric's presence, I guess. It's further proven when Eric meets her alone in the Hall of Mirrors and tells her that he knows Pierre is his son. He asks her to stay with him, but she refuses. He asks for her to leave Pierre with him, but she tells him he must wait until Pierre is 18 in 5 years. Eric seems to acquiesce. Meanwhile, the author really wants to drive home the point that Pierre can't be Raoul's son because his dick was shot off at the age of 16, which Madame Giry happened to be present for conveniently. Cool, thanks, totally unnecessary detail. At the opening night of the opera, Eric poisons the throat of a tenor so he can jump in for the emotional climax and sing a beautiful aria with Christine. At an after-party, he asks Christine to meet him at Battery Park the morning she is to return to France with her family. She brings Pierre and Raoul along,
No, she just brings Pierre, and Raoul comes with the reporter and Father Joe. Right. It doesn't matter, but whatever. Right. They all end up.
Sorry, Raoul appeared in that scene, and I was like, "Where the fuck did he come from?" So I assumed he brought her along.
Yeah, he came for like the last few nights of the opera that Christine was in. I guess to watch it, and then so he just happened to be there. It doesn't matter. He's not important.
Yeah, she brings Pierre, but Darius also follows them there. He attempts to shoot Pierre, who will obviously steal his inheritance since he's Eric's son, but ends up killing Christine. Darius is shot by Eric and also killed. Meanwhile, Raoul and Father Joe roll up just as everyone gets shot and killed. Pierre stays with Eric after all, but Eric loses his true love in the end.
Yes. Good job.
Thank you for the many corrections there, Mary. When I write those summaries, I have like executive decisions about what's important to include versus what's not important to include.
Oh, absolutely. So and you are.
I really try to focus it down to like the bare minimum.
Yeah. The most important thing, in my opinion, is that they go to such lengths to make Eric seem like a good guy now, even though he has murdered people. And now worships Mammon, but of course Madame Giry explains away, he didn't actually murder those people.
Right.
Madame Giry totally rewriting the events of the original musical. Sure.
Phantom apologist. That's okay. I'm a little bit of a Phantom apologist myself. I understand.
Oh, 100%. I mean, we were all young ladies in the early 90s. It's inevitable.
I was 15 when the 2004 movie came out, and let me tell you, I fucking love that movie.
It's so bad, but I also love it and have seen it 1,000 times. Anyway.
Yeah.
But basically, it's like he's building the opera house. This is a funny detail I just thought was funny, because he wanted a private box at the Met. You can't get a private box at the Met unless you meet personally with Lady Astor, which I believe is actually a true thing in history. I think that's actually true. And of course, he doesn't want to see anybody in person, so they say, no private box for you. And so out of spite, he finances Oscar Hammerstein's opera house, also a real thing that happened, but apparently was paid for by the Phantom of the Opera.
And Oscar Hammerstein's like, oh, hell yeah, sure.
Absolutely. And then
I'm down. Let's do this.
The other real character they mentioned, Melba, the diva from Australia. Mm-hmm. That was a real person in history. She was a famous opera diva.
I actually didn't know that.
They bribe her to come. They're like, we'll get her. It'll be a coup. She swore she'd never sing in America, but let's give her like $20 million in 1906 money. So she agrees, but her greatest rival, Christine, also agrees to come sing only because she loves the music so much. Which what's his name? Gaylord Spriggs, the opera critic in this book, is quick to point out Christine does it for the art. Melba does it for dirty money.
Right. Therefore, Christine is pure.
Exactly.
And perfect. All right, let's get into our little rubric here, which is a thing we've introduced relatively recently. First, let's talk about technical construction.
Fine. I mean, the sort of like the point of view thing happening here. It seems like you didn't love the point of view changing around so much, Paris, but I was actually fine with it. I feel like it added a little bit of interest to otherwise bare bones plots.
Oh, no. We actually always complain on this show about how I wish more books did this, where you get a perspective shift with every chapter. However, I took issue with just how many perspectives we get from people who we do not care about. It's like a little lawyer, too much.
Which again, Madame Giry, you could have picked any lawyer in France. She picks one that doesn't speak any English and doesn't want to go. So great, very helpful. Go to New York City, the largest city in the world, and find some guy named Eric Mulheim. Just do it. That's all the information he's given. So he's literally wandering the streets screaming, Eric Mulheim? Are you?
I don't speak English, but Eric Mulheim.
His whole chapter is one of my favorites. It's just him complaining about how much Americans are awful and he hates them and he doesn't like being there. It adds nothing, but I love it.
I don't know. I actually love that vibe because I also hate Americans and don't want to be here. So, I get it.
We're recording this episode on July 4th right now, so I just wanted to add that detail into the listeners' ear.
Yeah, he's right. Good job, French lawyer. Anyway, he falls with the New York journalist, and that guy brings him to a restaurant where it's a whole thing. Anyway, finds him a translator, gets the thing. Yeah,
the waiter is like, "Yo, the richest guy in New York is called EM, right? Like maybe that's him." That's what happens. The waiter's like, maybe
that leap in logic was the craziest part of the plot.
Yeah,
I think. It's just like, sure, there you go.
Baffling.
I like the reporter bringing the French guy to the French restaurant, just to be like, well, that's where they're going to be Frenching over there.
Yeah,
so
it's a good idea.
With the totally unnecessary detail that the owner of the restaurant is actually Swiss. And it's like, who cares? It doesn't matter.
They're like, so the types of French are a little different. It's like, yes, we understand. We get it.
I feel like it's sort of like Swiss are natural translator people just by virtue of the fact that they speak a lot of languages over there. So if you want something translated, find the
they
Swiss.
Speak French. And so, he's right. But it's also like,
he's right.
Yeah, he's correct. But it's just kind of like a funny thing. Is like, listen, if you need something translated, just find a Swiss guy.
Yeah,
they speak Swiss German, which some would argue isn't actually German, French and English, and what else do they speak there? What's another language? I don't know.
I've never been.
Maybe just those.
Beautiful though. Yeah. So I will say, really, I've experienced this book, at least 10 times in the audiobook version. And I skimmed the physical printed version for this, and it works better as an audiobook, guys. It is like, it's so hard for me to listen to these different people's perspective chapters, especially because they don't say things like he said, she said. It's all just printed dialogue like a script, which I find weird. But in the audiobook, it works perfectly. So I wonder if he wrote it with an audiobook in mind. But I don't know.
In 1986? I don't know. I guess.
No, this book's not from 86.
Oh, wait, this is from 99. Sorry,
yeah,
1999.
So I don't know. It works so much better as an audiobook that it's like, it's odd. It's an odd thing.
Wow. Yeah. This is one of the few things where you could just say, wow, that should have been a podcast or something, you know?
Yeah. Oh, this would have been such a good serialized podcast.
The only time it should have been a podcast.
Oh man, a serialized fictional podcast version of this is the way for this story to be told. Someone out there, go ahead and do it, because it would be fantastic. I would listen.
I mean, sounds like a job for our listeners. Get into it.
And then hire me and pay me to edit it. I'll do it for that.
Be fun.
It would be. But yeah, back to the topic at hand here. Again, I love a change in perspective. Again, Chris and I have advocated this as a solution to many a book on the show. Is like, if only the perspective changed, we had some variety. But in here, there's too many. Okay, so for example, we have Madame Giry, the Phantom himself, Armand Dufour, the lawyer who hates America, Charlie Bloom, the reporter, Darius, Gaylord Spriggs, a fucking opera reviewer guy, an opera critic, a
shipping journalist, that guy who's
Bernard
there just
Smith.
to talk. Yeah.
We get a little bit of Father Kilfoyle. We get
Darius and Mammon,
Meg Giry, Taffy Jones.
Taffy
Jones.
Fuck
off. Taffy Jones is where I drew the line.
Jones is a bridge too far, I would say.
Dude,
I saw that chapter.
Why?
I saw that chapter and I was like, if I could throw this fucking electronic book, I would. I'm so mad right now. And then it's like the ecstasy and prayer of Joseph Kilfoyle. That's when he talks to God or whatever. Another review. Oh, Amy Fontaine, a society columnist. Like, get out of here. I don't care.
That chapter is so, like, there's no new information conveyed in that chapter. Like,
no.
What? It's like Christine goes to a party. Teddy Roosevelt is there, and I
really love the president showing up. Like, there's literally a line that's like, "Ladies and gentlemen, the president of the United States," like for no reason. Teddy doesn't have to be there.
We actually get the line, and the president clapped. Like, that really happens in here. It was just like,
but nothing happens at the party. Like, why is the
no? It would have made so much more sense if these the columnists were just a little indent paragraph when one of the characters reads the piece instead of getting a whole chapter of their perspective. It just seemed weird. And there was also some strange repetition in those chapters where they were like, oh, just in case you haven't been paying attention, here's the story so far. It's like, guys, this book is generous.
177 pages. And it is small, and it has large print.
Yes, exactly. The large print means that this really felt like 100-page book. It was very short. So needless padding, Forsyth. Needless padding on your behalf. On your part, rather. I am disappointed in you. But beyond that, I think it was generally fine. I'm just gonna pick a random point to read just so we can demonstrate that it booked. Did a book thing. Penthouse Suite, EM Tower, Park Row, Manhattan, October 1906. Every day.
The date is right there.
I don't know. I just blocked it out of my mind. I was like, I don't care about this. This is big words I can skip. Every day, summer or winter, rain or shine, I rise early. I dress and come up from my quarters to the small square rooftop terrace atop the pinnacle of the highest skyscraper in all New York. From here, depending upon which side of the square I stand, I can look west across the Hudson River towards the open green lands of New Jersey. Sorry, I'm laughing because that's not how I would describe New Jersey now.
Hasn't been choked with smog and cheesesteak dust yet.
Yeah, not quite yet. Or north towards the midtown and uptown sections of this amazing island, so full of wealth and filth, extravagance and poverty, vice and crime. Vice and crime? That doesn't work for me. He's got wealth and filth, extravagance, poverty, vice and crime. Like, they're all comparisons, but then the last one is anyway. Or south towards the open sea, which leads back to Europe and the bitter road I have traveled. Or east across the river to Brooklyn, and lost in the sea mist, the lunatic enclave called Coney Island, the original source of my wealth. Would we still call Coney Island the lunatic? And I, who spent 7 years terrorized by a brutish father, 9 an animal chained in a cage, 11 an outcast in the cellars below the Paris Opera, and 10 fighting my way up from the fish-gutting sheds of Gravesend Bay to this eminence, know that I now have power and wealth beyond the dreams of crisis. I think that's how I say crisis.
Crisis.
Crisis? Crisis. Know that I now have wealth and power beyond the dreams of Croesus. So I look down on this sprawling city and I think, how I hate and despise you, human race. Signed, Eric Wilhelm Edgelord, 1906.
I mean, dude, same.
I know, this is like the I'm becoming the Joker chapter right here. It's so, so intense.
It really is. It really is. Edgelord Eric has entered the chat.
While you all were having fun and going to parties, I was studying the stock market, Blade.
It's true.
Fixing fights, sure. Contrast that with, I mean, he really does do a good job of writing differently for each character.
Yes,
which helps the voice actors on the audiobook immensely. But here's you're introduced to Charlie Bloom, the reporter, who is my favorite. And he's at Louis' bar. And this is also a good illustration of why this perspective writing is kind of weird. This is written with no quotes, no nothing. Like, this is just as if you're reading a transcript of this guy telling a story in a bar. He says, I tell you guys, there are times when being a reporter is in the fastest, hummingest city in the world is the greatest job on earth. Okay, we all know there are hours and days of foot slogging and nothing to show for it. Leads that go nowhere, interviews rebuffed, no story, right? Ani, can we have another round of beers here? It's like, you've introduced Barney now? It's just odd.
Yeah. No, but honestly, when this chapter happened, I was like, oh, maybe this guy can write a book. Maybe he can do this. Because I was like, oh, this is kind of entertaining where you get, you're supposed to be. But then I was like, why would he be talking to me? Why am I here?
Yeah.
Why am I in this bar?
Yeah. Have you read any other books on this podcast that are by authors who are so well established? I mean, he's a professional author. He's like Britain's version of John Grisham. Like, he is very famous.
Yeah, we've read quite a few established author books. We read that Book Shot. Who was that? That wasn't
James
Clancy.
Patterson.
James Patterson, who is as far as I can tell, James Patterson is just a conglomerate of other people at this point. I assume Forsyth is still one person. I think he still does all his own writing.
Imagine the American version. James Patterson writes a book as a favor to his good musical friend, Lin-Manuel Miranda. Amazing.
Oh, God. Yeah. But yeah, I also have sort of a love-hate with this style where I'm like, yes, I love the different perspectives. I love how different the writing is and that you can tell it's a different person legitimately. But then at the same time, like you just said, it's like, why is he talking to me? Why am I in this bar with him and Barney in New York in 1906? I don't quite understand. So it's a little jarring sometimes the way that it shifts. But no typos, the formatting's fine, punctuation's fine. I mean, no issues here. So I say we give this a nice big solid 1.
Yeah, I wouldn't have any problem with that.
Yeah. All right.
Now, moving into plot construction and general coherence here. I mean, it's a pretty thin, basic plot overall, right? Like, it's just Eric is bringing Christine overseas because he found out that he has a son. He wants to have a big, epic opera-ing together. He wants to have, sing arias with her once again and ask her to leave Pierre behind. But his jealous corporate assistant is there because he's afraid of Pierre getting his inheritance, and he has to pray to Mammon about it.
But didn't he already know that she had a son and it was his? Doesn't he know
that's
that?
the whole reason that Geary sent the letter.
Oh, you're right. Sorry,
he didn't know that Raoul didn't have a penis. That's news to him.
Oh God, I would really hate. This is the worst part of the story. This is the worst part of the story. So we'll talk about that bit in a moment. I don't know. The plot is fine, I guess, but you do have to sort of believe in all these bigger than life kind of events, right? Like him pulling himself up by the fish straps or whatever, and like, Christine still being wildly successful even all these years later, and the whole letter thing, and the French lawyer who's speaking no English finding the right person to get the letter to. There's just a lot of coincidence and luck built into this plot that I really hate.
True, but when you consider the source material, both the original book and the musical, I mean, that's just melodrama. It's pulp, it's over the top, and it's like, I think this book fits with that pretty well. I mean, it's a little weirder than those tend to be, although the end, I don't know if you've read the original book, but it ends with the Phantom saying to Christine, if you turn this bejeweled scorpion to the left, you will marry me and we will live happily ever after in my dungeon. If you turn it to the right, this room will fill with acid and we will all die. It's something like that. It's like
Eric Wilhelm, just Resident Evil mansion designer.
Yeah,
like,
he's
the guy that made all like the wheel, like you have to put the tablet in the 3 statues to open the basement door in case you want to get to the water.
Exactly.
Yes,
in the original novel, it's basically the basement is basically Saw. So she turns it to the left or whatever. Yeah, and it's like he's like, oh, she chose to marry me instead of die horribly in a vat of acid. I have been wrong, and I will let her go. It's like, okay, cool.
Bro, you can just let her say yes or no. You don't have to bring in the whole like scorpion knob
why
trap
was there a
into
bejeweled scorpion? And again, I might be misremembering this.
Wow, I read it when I was a kid. I don't remember it very well though. So there could be a scorpion. I believe you.
There is a gold or bejeweled scorpion. Of that I'm sure. I just can't remember if she's supposed to turn it right or left.
Hey, Eric, can I use the bathroom? Yes, you must go down the hallway and find the bejeweled scorpion. 3 different types. There's 3 different colors. You got to go into the foyer to find the first one. That's in a treasure chest. That's easy. Yep. But the red one, you have to pull down from the chandelier. You have to shoot it down with your pistol that you have. You want to take a shit or not?
Well, no, and then
shells.
I was gonna say, you got to use the 3 seashells. Come on, that's the classic. I just rewatched that the other day. It was fantastic. Still.
You know what's kind of interesting is that in this sequel book, Forsyth really draws some stuff from the original novel. Like Darius is obviously a stand-in for the Persian. That there's a character in the book that's not in the musical. He's very because he's like, can't remember where Darius is from, but let's say Persian.
It's racism character.
It's totally, but it's like it's weird though because in the book the Persian is the hero, and Raoul's just along for the ride. And in this book, the Persian is a worshiper of Mammon because, of course, and oh my God, the voice for Mammon in the audiobook, trigger warning on that one.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, even though it's very understated in this book, I still got a hint of the racism with Darius because
100%.
He, when he's conversing with Mammon, where is he? At a hashish bar or whatever. That is described like a fucking opium den.
Yep. A straight up opium den that's really gross and grody. Yep. Not even a classy one.
And of course,
why do you have to get high as fuck to talk to Mammon, but Jesus will just show up if you're like, hey God, I got a problem with my buddy here, and Jesus will drop everything, including overseeing the Balkan War or something.
Nah, but he only had a few minutes though. We had to get back to that.
Yeah.
It's written in the text. That's a textual reference, everyone.
Can we talk about actually how it's really funny how there's literal deities dropping into this otherwise small time,
fucking crazy,
kind of romantic plot happening here?
Well, I feel like that's suitable for Tereblo's presence because that's
sure.
where I felt Tereblo's tentacles grasping out from the electronic page.
We can leave it for that then, but that it does impact general plot coherence just a touch. I would say.
No, it's true, but I still think we can talk about that later. The deity stuff is crazy. I don't know. And to answer your original question, it's because evil bad people do drugs, Chris, and that's the only way you can access evil deities is through doing bad evil stuff.
if you pray hard enough, you feel like you're on drugs. You gotta pray super hard though.
Yeah,
super hard.
Real hard.
I don't know. I've done some hash oil here and there, and Mammon hasn't ever really hit me up. So I don't know. Like, is it? Do I smell bad? Is it me?
Yeah,
like,
you're doing it wrong.
Oh,
yeah.
Fuck. All right.
Because
I would, if Mammon
praying?
showed up and he was like, listen, dude, I got the stock portfolio for you. You're going to be sitting pretty. I would listen for a second. So I would, just final point on the plot. I would say, like, it's bare bones. It's there
it is.
For the melodramatic sake. So it's not like we have any coherence problems when all you really have to do is get Christine and Eric in the same room together so that they can have their final romantic aria singing scene together, and then the tragic murder. That's really all that needs to happen, right?
Those what's
are the
funny?
Two big bits.
When you think about it, the melodrama is all described by observers who are standing kind of far away. None of the actual super dramatic moments, like Eric and Christine's confrontation, their conversations backstage at the opera, it's all described by like third-party witnesses, people in the audience. True. The reporter who's like several meters away when the murder happens. Like, so it's not really melodrama. It's like a person describing a crazy thing that happened to you. We don't get any perspective chapters from Christine, for example. Poor thing.
Yeah, I was wondering what that was about, and I don't know if that's just men being men or what. Like, they just wanted to keep Christine in her perfect ivory tower of like. Yeah, because we get a perspective chapter from fucking Meg Giry. Like, Meg, Meg, you're
Jones.
fine, I guess. Taffy Jones, right.
Taffy Jones.
All these random other people.
That could, and again, I'm totally speculating. I have no insider knowledge. It could be part of the fact that Andrew Lloyd Webber at the time was still extremely bitter about his divorce from Sarah Brightman, who was the original Christine. And it almost feels like some of the plot of this and other versions of it is to, like, just fuck Christine over. Because indirectly, it's fucking over Sarah Brightman, who they had a very acrimonious divorce. So it's like, maybe that's why she doesn't get a chapter. Maybe he told Freddie, like, hey, buddy, don't let that bitch say anything.
She's not getting any bonus pay. She's not spoken line.
No, because for so many people, that's who they remember as Christine Daae is Sarah Brightman. And I actually didn't know until I was reading for this episode that she was married to Webber, and he cast her as Christine. I mean, that sounds pretty phantom-y to me, dude. Like, who's the Phantom now? Who's the Phantom now, Webber?
I'm pretty sure there was a pretty good age gap there, too, so it works on many levels.
I know. Very creepy. But yeah, I don't know. I think Chris, I know we were talking about the deity thing, but yeah, I agree that the whole Father Joe character, like, why does he need to be there? He's literally just there so we can talk to God once.
Is
like,
the most deletable chapter I've ever
really
seen in any book, because he's just there talking to Pierre about a little bit of history, and Pierre eventually gets around to asking him about, like, his mom a little bit, but not in a way that felt necessary at all.
No.
There's no reason. If they needed that conversation, there's no reason it couldn't have been with Meg. Like, Meg could have been his nanny.
Right.
Like,
right.
Yeah, they don't need that guy.
And that would have made sense because Meg is Christine's best friend still. So, completely ridiculous. Again, we just have that so we can see God pop in a chapter. It's really strange. It's
like to
really
add
strange.
like the metaphysical cosmic deity level good versus evil into this, which didn't have to happen. I think the book would have been better served if Darius wasn't there in service to Mammon, god of greed, but was just simply jealous of Pierre perhaps getting the inheritance. Like that would have been done better.
Well, why do we need to get the metaphysical plane involved? Like, just leave us here on Earth. We got plenty of things to worry about here. We don't need deities. And also, if you really wanted a little bit of, I don't know, Christianity in your life in this book or whatever, I'm sure Meg is Christian. It's France in 1900. Like, the odds are good. Any of these people, or Christine, any of these people could have been, religious enough to be praying and having some weird audience in their head with the Lord. Not that I think that's a great idea. I think it should have been cut, but you don't need a priest to accomplish that. The whole like sudden retconning of Raoul's penis being gone is possibly the worst sin of this entire book.
Disagree. Love it. Love that part. Rewound and listen to that part over and over again. It's just hysterical. It's just like there's no overstating how funny this is, because it's like the classic fan fiction problem. You have two characters who you want to see them bone, but you have this third guy in the way. How do you get rid of him? And in most fan fictions, especially in like the early, like when Phantom of the Opera was at its most popular and fan fiction was most popular, Raoul was like a loser, like he is a drunk or a gambler, and this is what they do in the musical, which we'll get into. In other ways, it's like he turns out to be a bad guy. So then, therefore, you might as well just go with the Phantom, because these are the only two men in the entire world. And now they've switched which one is good and which one's bad. In this one, they're like, Raoul is a good man. He's a sweet boy, and he's just like, he finds out Christine is pregnant and offers to marry her so that she'll have the protection of his name and he'll have money, and he swears to raise the kid as his own. Like, he's a good dude. And it's like, which is a more interesting and more unique way to get rid of Raoul than he's
sure, but did we have to blow his dick off with a gun though?
100% we did. Get rid of that.
We need to be sure that Pierre is.
I wish that plot point had made it into the musical version. I wanted to sing a lament about how he can never touch a woman. Just come on, that would have been amazing.
I hate this for so many reasons. Like, one, it comes out of nowhere in the plot. Like, it really is like, oh, by the way, Madame Giry saw his dick get blown off when he was 16. Like, wait, I'm sorry, what? What? Yep. Comes out of nowhere in the plot. Second, we are just not using our imaginations about sex enough. Plenty of people have differing genitalia, differing bodily anatomies, and they still have productive, loving sexual relationships with their partner. So I really hate that part. I just don't like, again, this is sort of related, but I don't like this idea that, like, if you're lacking, some part of your body that most people think is necessary, that you're somehow less of a person, less than human, you can't enjoy life. It's just such a fucking shitty idea, and I hate it so much.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
No, like morally and like in real life, this is the sort of thing that you would be like, fuck this guy. In melodrama, however, this is the sort of thing that happens all the time. Like, this is just how the world is.
Which is why I hate melodrama and fan fiction.
That's very fair.
And this is just fan fiction that got retconned into being real, right? Like, sure, that's all. So I don't know. This part, it just, it made me laugh really hard due to like the horror of it. I was like, I can't believe you would write this into this story, you fucking monster. And just the whole coincidence of like, oh, by the way, Madame Giry saw it happen. It's like, fuck off, Forsyth. And Weber, fuck you too, man. So stupid.
Oh yeah, it's dumb as hell.
It is. I guess we had, rules following stuff. I mean, I don't know. Does it follow the rules of 1906 New York City and opera? I mean,
there wasn't much to say here. The only part that I had issue with was the fact that Eric gets to sing the climactic arias or closing sections of his opera with Christine because the tenor that they hired to sing that part, I don't know how much Eric was involved with the hiring process, but
he 100%
probably
did.
a little.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
right. So
he's hiding behind paintings. He's hiding behind paintings in boardrooms,
he's like peering and everything.
Yeah.
He hires the guy, has him sing half the opera, and then in the intermission, he knows, oh, this guy has like a throat spray or something that he does to like keep his voice up mid-opera. And he like taints it with something that paralyzes the guy's vocal cords for like a short period or something. It's like, bro, you did not have to go to those lengths. Just to be the tenor.
Your own opera,
just be the tenor. B, you can just like come up in the middle of the whole production and be like, hey, you know me, I'm the owner of this whole damn opera house. here's $5,000 in 1906 dollars, which is like, he has that. He can just like spend that and just be like, fuck off for the rest of the day. I'm just going to do this. I'm sure the tenor would have been like, rad. I don't even have to do this shit anymore. You didn't have to poison the motherfucker.
That was in the musical and in the book, though. So like Eric poisoning people to get them out of the way is kind of his shtick.
Yeah, and this exact thing is just a mirror from the musical where he does this exact thing to Carlotta, the reigning soprano, when Christine is younger, so that Christine, as her understudy, can sing and become famous. And so it's just there for
and
that
in
reason.
The last
I
opera,
understand, but it sucks.
He actually kills
I agree.
The tenor.
I agree.
Yeah. He kills the tenor in the original musical. He kills the tenor who's supposed to be singing with Christine in order to take her place on stage so that he can then kidnap her in front of everybody. So at least he didn't kill him, you know?
because in this book you see him killing Kianji was an accident, right? Yeah. Or something.
I was just supposed to knock him out. I didn't know he was so fragile.
All right. Now we can talk about character quality. Do we feel like these characters have any kind of depth, or are they just sort of like cardboard cutouts?
I mean, no, not really. Because the plot doesn't require it, right? Like, there's no real need to get too deep. Although there was an opportunity, like I said, if you had Darius be motivated by simple jealousy, I think that could have been a neat little detail if, for example, at the end, Darius is thrown away by the one person that respected him, because Eric partnered with him, picked him up on Coney Island, and Darius could have had a similar arc to Eric. Like, I was cast out, I wasn't respected, no one liked me except Eric, and now, like, at the end of all this, he's just gonna cast me aside for his son, which could have been a fun little mirror to hold up to Eric, who was treated the same way and might turn around and like treat someone else in that fashion.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great idea.
This is amazing insight, Chris, because I know that you haven't seen the musical version of this. But we'll no spoilers until we get to that part, but let's just say they tried that plot and it also does not work. But it is a good idea.
Well, great.
It is a good idea.
Well, shit.
So I actually watched this with Mary a long time ago, like several years ago, and I didn't even remember that. So, well, maybe today we can just force everyone to enjoy it with us later. Yeah, I don't know. We've kind of got a case of paper dolls here. I feel like the only people I get any insight into are the Phantom and the reporter. Like, those are the only two characters that are fleshed out a little bit. And as you already brought up, I really hate that we get no insight into Christine still. We still just see her as this sort of perfect, epitome of a woman. I mean, there's even a line where the Phantom is like, oh, her waist is still tiny. And I just wanted to throw up. Like, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. Didn't quite escape, but, oh, man, I wanted it to. It was gross.
Yeah, also, what famous opera diva with the most beautiful voice in the world has a tiny waist? That's, like, not a thing. But that structurally, for resonance. I
don't know, actually. That's a good question. I guess I'm not up on my, like, 1900... opera singers. I really have no idea, but it was just weird. But yeah, we don't really get much depth into anybody. Maybe a little bit of the Phantom and like I said, the reporter, but everyone is very singularly motivated, like, and everyone is sort of controlled by something, right? Darius is controlled by Mammon in a way. Eric is just controlled by, Darius wants to think he's controlling Eric, right? But just sort of controlled by greed. The idea that there's any love in this book, is absurd to me. Nothing feels loving. It's just a weird obsession, and I don't understand why they keep talking about it. Like,
you could have even have drawn a parallel from like Eric's greed for money to Eric's greed for the possession of Christine, which we also don't get. The whole thing is very possessive in nature.
Yeah, it's just possession, exactly. And oh man, see that movie if you haven't, or maybe don't. That's that's like what we're working with here, and they don't ever even play with that idea. It's just like, oh, they were each other's first love. It's like, no, this was a very weird situation.
Actually, the only thing Christine is very clear on in the little snippets of dialogue that is overheard by other characters and then repeated to us is she keeps telling him over and over, I don't love you, I love Raoul, get it through your dumb head, I love not you, but him, like over and over. She's like, look, I'll tell the kid about you when he's 18 and he can make his own choices. But it's like, I'm not going to rip my kid away from a life of the luxury of a French aristocrat to be with a guy I don't like. So like, quit it.
Yeah, I was also struck by that too. Like, she's so clear about that. There isn't even a scratch. And in fact, the only thing we really see from Christine is like fear and concern for her son and for her like bodily harm. She's not at all torn emotionally about this, which I think is weird because the original story, or the original musical, actually, no, not the original musical. We'll talk about that in a minute. The 1986 Andrew Lloyd Webber musical that has become popularized and famous. In that one, she is torn the whole time because at first she thinks the Phantom is the angel of music. She thinks it might be her dead father coaching her.
Yeah.
Right. Either sent by her dad or actually her dead dad. She's not sure. In the musical, they make her 16, even though in the book she's 21, which again, fuck you, Webber.
I don't think so. I think she's 16. She might even be 15 in the book. I'd have to go back.
No. I think she's 21. I think there was a misunderstanding in the text, and so people like.
Oh, interesting.
So anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that's right. Again, I haven't read it in a long time, but I remember thinking like, oh, interesting. She's not 16. So like we make it creepier in the musical because, 80s dudes got to 80s dudes, I guess. Right. But especially when you're casting your underage girlfriend in the role in the lead. Yeah. But well, not underage. I'm sure she was of age, but much younger girlfriend.
Yes.
Age gap girlfriend. Let's say that. Yeah, and in the musical, she is actually torn because at first she thinks it's either her dad or an angel sent by her dad, and then realizes, oh, this is a person, and then is like, oh, wait, if it's a person, do I love this person? I don't know. I'm 16. What the fuck do I know? My first love was Raoul, who's like reappeared in my life, but this guy seems kind of mysterious. Like, I get that as a 16-year-old. That makes total sense. But here it's then this book is also trying to say, but they boned though, and it's like, well, why would they have?
Yeah.
Why would they have fucked if she was never into him? Like, and it's not at all depicted as assault, but I feel like that's
kind of is though. Like,
I feel like that's where I end up landing.
She's not remembering it that way. Like, she's not remembering like, oh, like you assaulted me, but she says something like, I was in a half swoon and I didn't even know what was happening. And I'm like, and that's when you had sex? Because that doesn't seem 100% consensual. But like, whatever. Again, melodrama. This is the sort of thing that doesn't bother me in melodrama. What bothers me is that it's in the musical, in the book, the tension for her is choosing between a safe, nice, kind man who loves her and the heights of artistic passion. So the Phantom is depicted as not only a genius in engineering and architecture, but also a musical genius. And he's tutoring her, and he's doing a good job of that. And he writes music, and it's just the most beautiful, heart-rending music you could imagine. So it's like passion, destructive passion, versus, you could say true love, you could say safe love, whatever. But like those are the things that are tearing her apart. Not like this guy or this guy. It's more like stability versus artistic achievement. And in this book, since she has a successful diva career, she don't need no Phantom. Like, she can go have her. Yeah. She can have both. She loves Raoul, and she has a successful opera career all on her own. So that's why she's like, quit it, dude. Like, it's not happening.
Yeah. Yeah, but, the Phantom's like, but I made you. And she's like,
yeah, well.
Yeah, thanks, you gave me a start, but then I kept doing it by myself, so whatever. But no, you're right. I really like that framing, and I wish people talked about that more, especially as somebody who is a musician and a singer. I mean, Chris is a musician too. He understands, and Mary's a thespian.
I don't think so.
No, you don't. Okay, well.
No, I'm saying I'm not a musician.
Do I understand the appeal of a genius who lives in a basement full of like wonderful like mechanical? Yeah, hell yeah, I do. I mean, like there's a reason that girls go for this. But it's not something you'd actually want to happen in reality.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those like, oh man, this is like the biggest like I can fix him like I've ever heard. Like
absolutely. But then you start thinking about the actual day to day. Like, okay, sure, if Christine is like, oh, you know what? Yes, I'll stay here in New York, and then like I'll be a diva in New York and you'll be my like secret basement boyfriend. Like what's the day to day on that? Like it's just not sustainable.
Even worse is imagining the previous day to day in the basement of the Opera House. Like,
oh my God,
all right, great, Christina, I'm so glad you're on board. All right, day 1 orientation. Look, these mirrors need a lot of oiling. Like, all right, first we're gonna start on floor 7, the sub of the sub floors, and then once you get past, all right, you're gonna feed the alligators too. So on your way to level 6, you gotta stop.
The alligator will give you a pearl from its mouth that you have to reach into.
Yes.
And if you place that in the cerulean door on the 3rd floor, you'll get to the trap door that will finally lead you to the bathroom so you can take a shit.
Right. Okay. And then once you've done that, I just feel like there's so much maintenance down there. Like, yeah, you've signed up for this beautiful artistic passion, and then you're like, fuck, there's a lot of day-to-day maintenance in this hall of horrors down here with 7 floors. 7 floors? 7 floors under the Opera House?
Like
is that right?
And
that's real, by the way.
The Phantom built all the basements for his Saw dungeon. But like, best case scenario, if she picked the Phantom, he'd be her possessive basement boyfriend while she went on to have a successful career at the opera.
Right.
But she, like, her 2 modes of living would be on stage singing and in the basement. Like, that's it. That would have been her life forever.
Yeah, that sounds
awesome.
Bad. Sounds not great. Yeah, I get it. I get why she chose what she chose. And I also just don't like. So even though, like you said, in Christine's dialogue, or what we kind of hear from other people, is she's like, no, I'm definitely not into the Phantom, and she even tells him, she's like, nah, not into it, dude. But I feel like the book is trying to convince you that she's thinking about it just because he has a dick. Like, are you getting those vibes too? Because that's what I'm getting. It's like, oh, the choice is between a dick or not a dick. And it's like, why is that, fuck you, why is that a choice? They had dildos in 1906. They've had dildos for millennia. Yeah. Like, if you really need that, it's available.
I think it's another just like clumsy metaphor for choosing the passion of art over the everyday stability of life. But it's like,
right. So the passion of art is sex with a penis, and the stability is no penis.
Yes. It does not work as well in this book as I think it almost works in other versions of this story. But yeah, that's basically it.
All right. Well, we've complained quite a bit now.
I think we can score this section finally. I don't know if I'd want to give it a straight up negative one because it's so bare bone. Like
give it a 0.
Yeah, I feel like it's a 0. It's like it's just very neutral, right? It's not horrendous, but it's also not that fleshed out or deep or interesting. So a 0 feels good to me here.
Yeah, I mean, he's also writing off of a story that's already established. So I would be. Yeah, it's kind of hard to not have this be a 0. Like, you'd have to really fall on your face, and I feel like he at least keeps it moving,
Yeah, 0. I think 0 is good. But if you want to go to the next section, I think we've already kind of talked about this a little, so we can probably just go ahead and, like, it's competently written, moment to moment. Mm-hmm. The sentences flow. He knows what he's doing. He is a real professional writer. As far as dialogue, There is a little bit, but again, it's dialogue that is relayed to us by someone who overheard it, which is a little weird. Yeah. But, it's coherent.
Yeah. I mean, the sentence is sentence, right? The book is booking, generally speaking. Like, it clips along at a nice pace. I read this in 2 short sessions. And in terms of prose quality, I feel like the author actually really captures certain personalities well, like we talked about earlier with the New York Reporter. Mm-hmm. But then sometimes it just gets weird and stereotypy.
Oh, yeah. And not just with Darius, also with like the Society Reporter, the opera critic. It's just like, and again, these are things that are so clearly well done in the audiobook, and well done in terms of they portray well what he is trying to convey.
Yeah. All right. Do we want to do a little more reading? Let's maybe read. We got page 117 as a suggestion.
So yeah, the offer of Charlie Brown. Charlie. They spell it Choli.
Charlie. Charlie.
CHOLY. But I think what he's doing is trying to phonetically give a New York accent.
Say Charlie.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Did I ever get around to telling you guys that being a reporter in New York is the greatest job in the world? I did? Well, forgive me, but I'm gonna say it again. Anyway, you got to forgive me because I'm buying. Bonnie, could we have a round of beers? It's like, blah, blah, blah. Someone told me the French liner Lorraine was docking at Pier 42 and bringing in this French singer lady who I'd never heard of, but who was a very big bagels in the opera world. Was it Big Bagels? Was that the one that threw you?
Yes.
Yes, it was Big Bagels. She's real big bagels. Real big bagels.
She's big bagels.
Oh, God. New York bagels now is a new meaning.
I'll bet he Googled that. I bet he's like, what? It's some old-timey New York slang. Big bagels. Sure, why not? It could be real.
This is the insight into 1906 New York City we're getting.
Perhaps that's just a Charlieism.
It could be just a Charlieism. Yeah. Readers, write in. Let us know if Big Bagels is a real slang term from 1906.
I must know.
Madame Christine de Chagny. Now, I have never been to an opera in my life, but I thought, what the hell? She's a big star, no one can get near her for an interview, so I'll go and have a look anyway. Besides, the last time I tried to help a Frenchie out of a jam, I damn near got a major scoop, and I would have done except that our city editor is a 4-star schlemiel. I told you about him. A weird incident at the EM Tower? Well, listen up. This gets weirder. Would I lie? Is the Mufti a Muslim? Wow.
Oh, woof.
Charlie.
Okay.
Wow. I wanted to at least get to that point to see when we talk
Christ.
about this, like, little bits of light.
Well, he also says, is the Pope Catholic?
Yeah.
Another one I can't remember. But it's like, yeah, he's got these little, we'll call them Charlieisms.
Yeah.
Yes, the Mufti is a Muslim. So, the answer is yes.
Yes. Great.
Anyway, so basically he's there. He sees a weirdo like passing by, which of course we know is Eric. And Eric drapes his cloak over Charlie's arm for reasons that are not really explained very well. But he does use
very
the cloak.
Weird.
It's very weird. I don't know how Eric could have predicted this, but basically Charlie uses the cloak to put it over a pile of slush so that Christine can walk across it without getting her dress wet. She loves this enough that he gets an interview with her. That's basically what happens. So it's just
and
like, you look like the type of guy that would throw my cloak over a puddle for a Big Bagels lady.
Yeah. I think Eric knows that this guy's a reporter. He remembers him from catching a glimpse of him through the wall when he delivered the letter with the French lawyer. I don't know why he wants this guy involved in Christine being in New York, except maybe he's like, Christine's too dumb to find me herself, so maybe this like local will be able to point her in the right direction to like find me. I don't know. It's very unclear, but for some reason Eric wants this to happen. He wants the reporter to hang out with Christine.
Yeah, I'm confused by the whole like he still wants to play games. Like the only way he announces his presence to Christine is to send her a monkey that her son has to open and like dissect and put back together, a toy monkey music box. And
how
it's
does
like,
he know the kid is a mechanical genius?
Yeah.
Right? Like he has prescience. Like even his ascent to wealth is like, I made the right stock picks. There's also a couple like scams and fixing boxing matches, but there's just like this general
scamming is more believable.
To make the correct decisions.
I just realized, you know what it is? The Phantom is addicted to drama. He cannot help himself. Like, he's like, I could just send her a letter and be like, hey, could we have a meeting? We need to talk. No, I'm going to make her son take apart a monkey, and then the monkey will lead her to Coney Island, and then they'll take apart a bunch of monkeys and find out that I'm there, and only then will I go to her and have a real conversation.
But even when I go to her, it has to be like funneling her through a hall of mirrors into the middle where he's awaiting her.
Yeah, it could be worse. Let's just say that the Hall of Mirrors in the original book is not somewhere that Christine would want to be. So it could have been worse.
Yeah, man, it's just so contrived. This is my issue with the main plot, which is like, I don't know. Now I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, I don't know. Like deleting Raoul's penis. Maybe that should have been a -1. Like on top of all this stuff, but so contrived and weird. Yeah, like, well, he's my son, so therefore he must be a mechanical genius. Is just making an incredible leap there. Like that's not how genetics works all the time. You know,
we don't even know if he made that leap. Like we don't get his explanation for why he's doing it this way. So,
yeah, and I just like why can you not just be like, hey man, we gotta talk. Like, no, I gotta do this complicated game shit.
Growing up in the basement of an opera house / in a sideshow is probably not the best way to learn normal social skills and also polite letter writing. So we'll chalk it up to that.
Okay, so I thought that was a good scene to just sort of exemplify what Forsyth does well. I do think that we get that New York reporter vibe pretty good, which is a hard turn from the chapters with Eric or Darius, where they're very like brooding and like, I studied the blade and conning while all of you assholes were being regular human beings. So he has adeptness at that, I think. I also think it would be a good idea to perhaps read from the Conversations with Deities, because you get a lot of dialogue in that, and it would be a good way to highlight how the dialogue is written generally. So do we have a preference, Mammon or Jesus?
Why choose, like Chris? Why choose? Also, who is going to be Mammon? Who's going to be Jesus in these readings? Because that's a good question.
Okay,
I guess we have to cast.
All right, I'm going to take the role of Darius because I love him. He's my favorite. Paris, you want to be Mammon?
I was born for this role.
Don't do the accent. Dear Lord.
Oh, God, no. That didn't even occur to me. It didn't even occur to me until you said that it was racist in the audiobook.
It occurred to the audiobook.
Oh, jeez. Okay, so Chris.
Okay, does that mean I'm the narrator?
You're the narrator. Mary's Darius.
Well, no, it's written from Darius's perspective.
You don't need a narrator.
Oh, okay.
You want to be Father Kilcoyne or whatever?
Maybe I could be Jesus.
You could be Jesus.
Okay, actually, Jesus is really chill in this, so I feel like that works.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. He will listen to me, advise and counsel me as always. He will be right. He is here now. I can feel his presence. Master, great God Mammon, I am on my knees before you. I have served you as best I have been able these many years, and I have brought to your throne my earthly employer and all his stupendous wealth. I beg you to hear me, for I need your advice and help.
I'm trying to decide if I should be Ditzy Mammon, if that would be funnier.
Yes, be Valley Girl Mammon.
Okay.
I hear you, servant. What is your trouble?
That man whom I serve here below, something seems to have entered him that I cannot comprehend.
Explain.
Ever since I have known him, ever since I first cast my eyes on that hideous face, he has had but one obsession, which I have encouraged and fostered at every stage. In a world that he perceives as being uniformly hostile to him, he has only ever wanted to succeed. It is I who channeled that obsession into the making of money, and ever more money, and thus brought him to your service. Is it not so?
You've done brilliantly, girl servant. Every day his wealth increases, and you ensure that it is dedicated to my service.
Recently, Master, he has increasingly become obsessed with another concern. Time wasting, but worse, much worse, a waste of money. He thinks only of opera. There is no profit in opera.
Too real. This I know, a fruitless irrelevance. How much of his fortune does he devote to this fetish again? Remind me.
So far, but a tiny fraction. My fear is that it distracts him from the dedication to the increase of your empire of gold.
So, does he cease to make money, or what?
On the contrary, he makes all of the blah, blah, blah. He makes all the money, but, like, come on. What?
Okay, we're editorializing a bit here.
Okay. He totally still makes a bunch of money. Like, come on. But always the instructions are his and the campaign planned by him, the things I must do and say devised by him.
And is his judgment, like, starting to fail him?
Oh, Master, it is as faultless as ever. Like, literally, Darius, what is your problem? Like,
okay. Yeah, why are we on the phone?
Like,
Why are we on the phone?
Mammon wants to know.
I smelled the hash smoke. I came in. What's the problem? He's still making money? Okay,
he literally
whatever.
says, then what is the problem, servant? And it basically, this is the part where we get the tidbit that the whole plan of Darius is to make as much money as possible and then at some point kill Eric and take all the money because he is Mammon's true servant and is the one that deserves to have all the money. But it's like, in the meantime, Eric is useful, good at making money, better at it than Darius. Something Mammon is like real shady about. She's not saying you are not as much of a genius. Yeah.
A little later in this text, Darius says, true, like, because Mammon is like, Girl Boss Mammon is like, so far he has recouped all of his investments and more. And Darius is like, well, yes, but this venture is a certain loss maker, even though such losses must be under 1% of his total wealth. And I'm just like, this is real, like, fucking shareholder energy. Like, fuck off. If it's less than 1% of his total wealth, who cares? Who cares? Well, and even Mammon is like, okay, whatever. Like,
yeah, but Mammon is like, well, that's not great because I'm evil and I want gold. But like, look, he's still mostly making money. So the minute he starts being more interested in opera than in making money, take your shot, basically. Or like, it's like if our plan is threatened, if it seems like he is not going to be leaving his fortune to you after you kill him, then you can take your shot. And so, yeah, I think basically Mammon is like condoning killing this kid or any obstacle to Darius getting the money. I don't know why Mammon cares who has the money. I don't understand.
Yeah, and Mammon, I know, and Mammon even ends this whole section with saying, "Fucking calm it down." He says, "Calm yourself."
Yeah, I like when the god of greed is like, "All right,
whoa, buddy,
a step back, buddy. Can we relax?"
Yeah, focus on the long-term plan, dude. Like, things are fine. Everything is fine. I gotta go girl boss more over there. I don't know why Mammon is like a ditzy girl boss in my mind, but yeah, it's very silly. Okay. Very silly.
Why don't we move over into
go upstairs
Father
to God?
Kilfoyle.
Yeah,
yeah.
What's going on?
Yes,
Mary, you want to be Father Kilfoyle or do you want
whichever you like? I can't do an Irish accent, unfortunately. So, I mean, I can I can do the Valley Girl. I can do Valley Girl tongue. Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy.
Oh my God, sorry, I was not expecting that.
Many times I have called upon you, more times than I can recall, in the heat of the sun and the darkness of the night, in the high mass in your house, in the privacy of my room. Sometimes I even thought you might reply, seemed to hear your voice, seemed like to feel your guidance. Was this all foolishness? Self-delusion? Do we really, in prayer, commune with you? Asking the deep questions. Thank you, Father.
Yeah.
Or are we listening to ourselves?
Dun
Forgive
dun.
my doubting. Forgive my doubting, Lord. I try so hard for true faith. Hear me now, I beg you, for I am bewildered and frightened. It is not the scholar, but the Irish farm boy that I was born. Please listen and help me.
I'm here, Joseph. What disturbs your peace of mind?
What? Bro? That's the vibe.
I like that Joe was like, hey, I've never heard you before, and now Jesus pops up for the first time.
It's like, oh, fuck, I can't lose this follower. Hey, man, sorry, I was just in the middle of something. But
what's up? Hey, Joe, let's relax here. I'm totally real.
Lord, for the first time, I think I'm really frightened. I am afraid, but I do not know why.
Fear? That is something of which I have personal knowledge.
You, Lord? Like, surely not.
On the contrary, what do you think I felt when they tied my wrists above me to the flogging ring in the temple wall?
Okay.
I just not imagine that you could feel fear.
I was a man then, Joseph, with all a man's weaknesses and flaws. That was the whole point. Did you read the Bible? And a man can feel great fear. So when they showed me the scourge, with its knotted thong set with fragments of iron and lead, and told me what it would do, I cried from fear.
I never thought of it that way, Lord. It was never reported.
Yes, it was the fucking Bible. Okay. A small mercy. Why are you afraid?
I feel there is something going on around me in this fearsome city that I cannot understand.
and I sympathize. The fear of what you can understand is bad enough. But it has its limits. The other fear is worse. What do you want of me?
I need your fortitude, your strength.
I already have them, Joseph. You inherited them when you took my vows and wore my cloth.
Anyway, this goes on for a while. I'm not worthy.
Yes.
Be fine.
We don't. Wait, no. Yeah. You gotta get to the part where he's like, I don't know. I gotta go to the Balkans though.
Yeah, that's towards the end. So basically, like, the father is telling the Jesus. He's afraid of Darius. Like, he specifically says he's not afraid of Eric. Like, I guess they've run into Eric at some point. Whatever.
Yes.
But he's like, I don't know. This guy seems like a cobra or like a soulless creature. And Jesus is like, oh, you mean Darius? Oh yeah, I know that bitch. Like, yeah,
it's
like
really
Jesus names everybody. He's like, oh yeah, Darius. He's a worshiper of Mammon. Let's see.
He worships gold. There's difference. Eric worships gold also, but somewhere deep inside his tortured soul, he once knew love and could again.
Yeah. But I mean, like, yeah, but he's like, the father's like, I think I can save Eric. I can't save Darius. He's a lost cause. But I think I could bring him back. And Jesus is basically hinting that the key to saving Eric is love. And he's like, what? I can't, like, encourage Christine to, like, forsake her marriage vows. And Jesus is like, yeah, there's more than one kind of love, buddy. Like, and he's like, what do you mean? And Jesus is like, you'll figure it out.
Joseph, no man who can know pure love, accepting only love of self, is beyond redemption. You are wrong, Joseph. He cherishes gold, he hates himself, and he loves a woman he knows he cannot have. I must go. And then, I cannot. There is a vicious war in the Balkans. There will be many souls to receive tonight. Like, listen, guy, I took a breather here just to pop up because I thought you were about to leave the faith, but people are dying horrendously.
Jesus can only be in one place at a time, even though...
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
That's my point that I wanted to make here. He's like, he's an omniscient god, but apparently he does have to, like, cast his eye of Sauron one at a time about the globe.
Like, he's got to do everything individually.
Exactly. Yeah, just bizarre. Just a bizarre thing to include in any book, let alone a continuation of the Phantom of the Opera. What the fuck?
Yeah. So we threw this in for a little dialogue sample for the most part, which is, you can see, functional for the most part. You know, Mammon's a little bit greedy. Jesus is pretty chill, but has shit to do. No. I'm not going to say it's stellar dialogue at all, but like the prose, pretty much functional here. So if we're scoring moment to moment, I'm kind of feeling a zero again.
Fine with that.
Fair.
You know, yeah. No, let's go to Cereblo's presence, because I feel like everything I have to talk about right now is Cereblo tinged.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, again, the deities popping up is very Cereblo tinged here, just because, like, there's no need to get the cosmic forces of good and evil involved in this small-time plot, as we said before.
Yeah,
it's really wild that that's happening.
Yeah,
in a Phantom
the
of the
chaos
Opera
levels
sequel.
are a little wild here. Yeah, we got guest appearances by Mammon and Jesus. We've got, you know, tragic penis loss out of nowhere. Just does not make any sense. What a thing to include in a story for all the reasons we talked about. A lot of coincidences. It's just sort of baffling. And then
don't forget the cameos from real historical people like Teddy Roosevelt and whoever his niece married, who was in, I don't know, U.S. history. I'm assuming that whoever she's talking about also becomes a president. Did Teddy Roosevelt's niece's husband become president or something?
Yeah,
doesn't matter. But like also at the party.
I think more books should have "Ladies and Gentlemen,
and then
the President" out of
clapped.
nowhere.
Like, wow, all right.
Oh, and also Irving Berlin was there, just playing the piano in the corner. Irving Berlin.
Yep, just hanging out. Oh yeah, Eleanor Roosevelt was the niece of Teddy Roosevelt, and then she became first lady to Franklin Roosevelt.
Ah, well, there you go. So Franklin and Teddy both at the same party, both saying that Christine is the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, very strange. Very weird thing to write into your book. You know, and in terms of chaos levels and like, we forgot to talk about the sort of simmering in the background. There's always a whiff of like, hey, remember the Civil War? And then the opera that the Phantom writes is a Civil War opera where the South is like sort of the good force in this, I feel.
But yeah, in the opera that the Phantom writes for his own opera house, which nominally has Oscar Hammerstein's name on it, is about the Civil War. And was it called The Angel of Shiloh or something like that?
The Angel of Shiloh, yep.
And basically the Phantom, or the tenor, is a Civil War Union soldier. And like right before the final act, like his face gets blown off or whatever. And that's why the Phantom's able to step in and like, but in his bandaged up form. And anyway, so I guess it's like a pro-Union opera, but it doesn't really get into the plot. It doesn't really matter.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
But it is weird. I mean, an opera about the Civil War is a thing that you almost feel like should exist, but doesn't.
Yeah, I guess maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe this is a thing that should be here, but it did strike me as a little strange. But I was like, anytime there's talk of America in this book, it's like, oh, they're still dealing with the fallout of the Civil War. And I'm like, I don't know, man, it's 2024 and we're still dealing with the fallout of the Civil War. Like that's, I guess that is kind of the fabric of the time, but there are also other things happening in 1906. I don't know. Whatever. He's a British guy. It's fine.
It wasn't that long after the Civil War, I guess, 1906. There would have been people alive then who remembered it. Yeah. So, I don't know. It's a weird choice. It could have been Revolutionary War, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
all that matters is a soldier whose face gets blown off. That's all that the actual opera needed as terms of plot.
Was World War I simmering at this point? Were we about to enter the events?
No,
I guess we're a little too early for that. No.
Nah, it took a little bit longer.
This is...
Speaking of dating, I want to bring up the pedantic point here for just a second, referencing the fact that Teddy Roosevelt felt as if she was the best thing since sliced bread. Sliced bread was sold in 1928,
my God.
so it hadn't happened yet, actually. So Teddy Roosevelt has no reference point.
Wow, are you right about that?
Sorry to step on your joke, Mary. I just wanted to. That's
not actually in the text. One. Okay, I thought it was.
No, it's not. Really it's not in the text. I made that up.
No. It was just a joke Mary made, and really I just wanted to be a jerk.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess in 1906 wasn't Napoleon doing stuff? I guess that wasn't in America, but like seems.
Yeah, but they're both French. Eric and Christine are both you're right. That would have made way more sense.
You would have thought there was some Napoleon stuff going on. I don't if I know. Anyway, it's fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the Civil War theme. It just struck me as like very puffed up because not only is the opera about it, but like the toy monkeys, all the ones that aren't Phantom tainted, play a song for the North and a song for the South. And
oh God, I forgot that detail. It's weird. I think they just wanted to they're like, oh God, there's not enough America in this book.
America, yeah. So they went with what's
in
more
this
American?
book called The Phantom of Manhattan.
What's more American than the Civil War? And I gotta say, in 2024, I feel like you're still right.
Yep.
Oh, the darkness. So,
you might have actually talked yourself into giving him a positive point for that. Sorry, Paris.
I may have. The other thing that I felt was kind of, I don't know if we want to say a little cerebro-y, but it definitely made me go, huh? Was there are multiple points in this book where Eric the Phantom is like, I only love that one time. That's it. I can't try again. Bro, you are the richest man in New York City in 1906. I'm pretty sure you could get a few more dates and try again. Just try again. Just try to date anyone who isn't Christine. I don't understand this fatalist, like, I'm not even going to try.
And sex work was a thing. So it's like, he has options. There are dark rooms. He has his leather mask. It's like, there are definitely women out there in 1906 who would not have been picky. There are women out there in 2024 who are clearly not picky about their rich guy that they, their rich, horrible man that they're willing to, whatever. We don't need to get into that. But it's just like, and also like syphilis was a thing. It's not like he's the only disfigured person walking around. And I'm not saying that those people were welcomed with open arms in 1906, but they weren't like super notable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and also just the whole idea that, oh no, you have a physical difference in your face, therefore you're condemned to never be appreciated. And it's like, just don't, that's just not true. First of all, even, and no matter what era you're in, you're always going to find people who are your kind of people and somebody who accepts you, assuming, I don't know, maybe it's a little harder this time around because, he is kind of maniacal, but he's also very rich. So I feel like
the scales, dude, it's not your face, balanced. It's your personality.
Yeah, and we don't ever get that. Like, we never get that it's not your face, it's your personality. We literally get, no, it kind of is your face, which is fucked up. I hate that plot point. I don't like it. Oh,
especially when they describe his face, because of the confines of what you can literally do with stage makeup and real solid people on stage. The Phantom makeup in the musical is it's as bad as it can be, but it's like, some suspension of disbelief. Whereas in a book and in the original novel, it's like you can make it truly horrific by just describing it. You don't actually have to put that makeup on a person. So like in the book, I think from what I remember, it's like he basically is a skull with skin pulled over it. It's like he has no nose. He's like, his eyes don't close. It's like, he doesn't have lip. It's just like, it is like the most horrible thing you can possibly imagine. Like basically like the Lon Chaney version.
Right, the Lon Chaney version. Yep, that's a good visual. If I guess you can Google that, folks, if you haven't.
Much more startling than a guy who just has one half of his face doesn't look so great. You know?
Which is all right. As much as I said earlier, like I really love the 2004 movie, but what I don't love is Gerard Butler is too hot to be the Phantom, and that just doesn't make any sense. They're just like, oh, this poor, disfigured, beautiful, gorgeous man in the basement, and you're like, oh, what? Okay. Yeah.
It's also because, confusing. Like, the Beauty and the Beast story, which it is, it works in the original version because it's literally a beast. He is covered in hair. He has claws for hands. He has a big snout instead of a mouth. Like, you can't even picture kissing this thing, let alone falling in love with it. And that's why it's like, oh, the power of true love, blah, blah, blah. Whereas this guy, it's like, he's human. Like, he's a human being.
Yeah, and he's not...
with a working penis.
Yeah. Yeah, the book can't let you forget that part. I hate this whole sort of, like, modern Westo-normative shit we've got going on here. Hyper masculine, like, very sort of modern fixations on beauty and acceptability. I don't know, it just sucks. I don't know how much I need to go on about that, but like,
no, man. You don't. But it also sucks in terms of plot, because it would have been a more interesting plot if he had this shitty childhood that turned him into a shitty person, and then he just acts shitty and blames it on his face, when in reality it's him becoming too bitter. So like, having characters reach out to him and offer him compassion, and him like shunning them because like he doesn't trust anybody, is a more interesting thing, than having people just uniformly be like, "Yep, you're ugly." It's like,
and I mean, but then on the flip side of things, if you do want to embrace this whole sort of like ideological package here, he's fabulously wealthy. Mm-hmm. He could change his appearance. It's 1906. Sure, it's not 2024, but like there were options. Also, he could just, with his fabulous wealth, I'm sure many people would be interested in dating him.
I just like it when they take his appearance farther than just, he's just got a little bit of a scar on one cheek. I like it when they take it to like a supernaturally monstrous place. Like one of my favorite versions of this. No, because this book is based on the musical and not on the books. But like there's another movie I saw, highly, highly recommend. It's a Robert Englund version of Phantom of the Opera.
Oh I was gonna bring that up.
Batshit. It is batshit. But my favorite thing is like he is literally cursed by Satan to be ugly. Like, so it's a supernatural ailment. Like it takes all his skin off, basically. Like, so he's like this skinless thing walking around. Like, it's bad. And it's so it's like that's the level of like grossness you'd have to go to for this to actually work as a guy who is totally shunned forever because of his appearance, like walking around no skin. Like, that's what we want.
Yeah, for those at home maybe not paying attention, Robert Englund famously played Freddy Krueger in all of the Elm Street movies.
And if you can find his Phantom of the Opera, holy crap. It was clearly made as a movie because the stage musical was out at that point and was very popular. So it's like late 80s, early 90s. It is, I can't overstate how awesome this movie is. It is so, it is Robert Englund doing the Robert Englundiest.
Yeah, I would actually love to see that version. All right, cool. Well, that's on the list now. Yeah, I don't know. There's just so many different ways that I guess I'm feeling a little terrible-y about this because it just feels so like fucking shoehorned in, right? Just we really want it to be this way. We're not going to think of any other possibilities for how this could play out, and it just hurts.
So on your scale, more Terrible higher or lower score?
Lower. So
okay, -1, absolutely -1.
Yeah, I would -1 this because that balances out everything else.
I would agree. Okay. Should this exist? We have some questions that we posit to sort of like get discussion going on this one. We start with, would readers of this genre enjoy this?
This book is only for Phantom of the Opera fans. That's the genre. Yep. Phantom of the Opera fan, right? Like, this is a fan fiction.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think a true fan would be really like the original should just be its own thing, right? Like, it does not need extension.
Tell that to AO3.
Well, I think if you wanted to, do a sequel, it certainly begs for it with the way that it ends. Like, the Phantom of the Opera ends in a way, the musical, the 1986 musical by Andrew Lloyd Webber. There's so many versions of this. Ends in a way where it is left a little open-ended, right? Like, we never see the Phantom die. He just sort of disappears.
He escapes. Yep.
He escapes. Christine, they question mark maybe the Music of the Night bone a little bit. We don't really know. There's certainly, if you have ever seen either the 2004 film or any of the musical any of the different renditions of the musical, there's some touching and sensualness, so you don't really.
They absolutely
it's definitely
do not bone in the musical, 100 because otherwise it makes no sense that he'd be all overcome when she gives him a little kiss. Like, if they boned, then that wouldn't be very moving.
Right? No, I agree. But there is some suggestion that there is maybe Christine's a lot more torn, let's say, in the musical version, right? So I actually think this is sort of something ripe to have a sequel, but I think this sequel sucks. It's not what I want. I don't like this. I don't like Love Never Dies, the musical version. So again, the timeline here is we went book to musical to book to musical, right?
It's just book to musical. That's all that. Yeah. Musical went through a couple of incarnations, but the book came first. He waited another 10 years, worked on the musical. His cat tried to save us all by accidentally deleting the entire score of the musical that he'd written up until that point. But he just started it over because he was determined. And then the musical finally happened.
Well, is that why he just reuses the same few cadences from the original musical over and over again throughout the entire Love Never Dies, and it sucks as a result?
I don't know enough about musical theater to answer this question, but I do think that the people see a very different quality from Andrew Lloyd Webber, like, let's say pre 1990 to post 1990.
Yes.
Depending on his collaborators. So yeah, I mean, we can get into the musical later. We'll get into the musical later. Yeah. Let's just keep going.
So would readers of the genre enjoy this? I don't know. I mean, I feel like this is just only for people they've been blue-balled since the Phantom of the Opera ended and they just desperately need a release, and this is here for them. I don't know that most people were into it, though. So I don't
think readers would like. Yeah, I don't think phantoms would be into this. They're called something I can't remember.
Do we feel as if the author's goal was met? And if it's a cash grab, sure.
Oh, to piggyback? Mm-hmm. Yeah, to 100%. Piggyback on a famous thing and make some money? Absolutely.
I think his goal was more doing a favor for a buddy. Like, he had plenty of money. I don't think it was mercenary. I think he was just like, sure, pal, here you go.
Why not?
I feel like he's like, Webber was like, I don't know, man, let's just keep this fucking cash train rolling. To do it. Mm-hmm. And Forsyth was like, yeah, sure, man, whatever. Mm-hmm. So, yes.
Does it add anything new, interesting, or novel?
Yes.
I don't know.
No penis and talking to gods.
A new dimension to the Phantom Opera cosmos.
Absolutely.
I mean, it certainly adds new elements to the story, but what is it? I don't know that it adds anything interesting or novel to the worlds of literature and theater. I don't know. I'm not feeling it.
Absolutely not.
Okay, yeah.
On that scale, no. And finally, did it take something from us?
Yes, Raoul's dick and the fantasies of millions who desperately wanted to bone him and the Phantom. I feel like it really, it definitely took some stuff from me.
I mean,
from the original.
it literally took a dick, but I don't think that it took really much from the original, because as much as I clearly love these properties and know a lot about them, I don't think they're good, especially the original novel. I think the original novel is real garbage, and it probably would have been forgotten if it wasn't for the Lon Chaney version. So no, I don't think it has diminished a great work of art in any way.
Yeah. Although you did make a point in the notes, Mary, that it does take away the Phantom's, like, kind of
evil,
murderiness. Like, it definitely casts him in a more sympathetic light, which, like, I'm fine with if we want to go that way. But it does give us.
I'm actually not fine with it, because when you take away the fact that he murdered people and then expect people to be like, oh, maybe he wasn't that bad. Yeah, but he still, like, psychologically tortured a teen girl from basically the age of 12. From if you want to go from the musical's perspective, she's been, like, his student for 4 years, and he has fallen in love with her in that time when he was in his frickin' 30s. Yeah. So, yeah. But they're like, oh, but he didn't murder, so I guess it's fine. No, he's a frickin' pedophile.
Yeah, that does strike me, because this book operates on the world of the musical, right? Like we talked about, in which Christine is, her age is reduced from the original Gaston Leroux book. So we are dealing with a ostensibly a child and an adult man here, and it is, and he's taking advantage of her naivety, presumably, because Christine has to be this creepy purity ball Christine, she's had no previous relationship, she's pure and perfect and innocent and wonderful, and so he is taking advantage of her naivete and lack of experience in adult relationships and sort of seducing her in a way that's pretty fucked up. So yeah, I agree. Even if we don't have a murdery Phantom, we have a pedophilic Phantom or whatever.
This is something I've noticed in other media where it's like, well, he might be manipulative and an asshole and blah, blah, but at least he's not a murderer. And it's like, that isn't better. Like, I mean, sure, it's legally better, but it's like, it doesn't make him a good person or someone that we want to end up with this beautiful paragon of femininity that is Christine. Like, no, he doesn't earn her just because he didn't technically commit murders. That's a pretty low bar.
The people get really caught up in the whole, like, what's legal when really they should be thinking about what's ethical, because legality is not always the standard bearer for ethical behavior or anything like that. So and
it's funny, I've been thinking about this a lot because I am currently directing a production of Richard III, and it's a very similar concept where it's like in the Shakespeare version, which is apparently not reality or history, Richard is born deformed and therefore he is evil forever because people have been treating him badly.
Right.
And that's kind of like, it's more interesting to explore that as a character where it's like, maybe he's had a few slights here and there, but it's really the way he's allowed it to twist him that has made him a monster, not his body.
Right. And here, I just think it's very ham-fisted, where it's like, yeah, he was born deformed and then people were mean to him, so therefore he's mean, but we don't really get any actual thought or fucking interrogation into any of this. It's just presented on a platter and you go, oh yeah, okay. And that's the thing, there's no thought.
We don't get an interrogation of that in the musical or the original book either.
Like, we don't.
No. Yeah. They're shallow properties.
It's a loss for us all. So did it take something from us? Yes. Coherent and interesting introspection ripped from us when we could have had it. It was right there and you just threw it away.
Okay. So I think we can try to score this. I'm feeling like a 0, sort of, honestly, where it's like the idea of doing this isn't terrible and perhaps that should exist, but maybe this particular version of it could have been done a little bit better. I don't think I'm a fan of the overall plot, so it's definitely not a 1, but it's a 0 or a -1. Where do you guys land?
Zero's fine. I think, yeah.
Yeah, because I don't want to give it a -1 because I don't think at its core it's a terrible idea to try to think about what would have happened after the events of the main musical or the main, but whatever, however you want to think about it. So yeah, I'm fine with the 0 here. So what's our overall score, Chris?
Okay, well, we had a 1 on technical construction, a 0 on plot construction, a 0 on moment to moment, a -1 on Terrible's presence, and a 0 on should this exist. So 0 out of 5, right down the middle.
Right in the middle between -5 and 5 with the extreme possibilities. So that feels about right.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's about right, because it's not unreadable. It's certainly not unlistenable. Again, plug for that audiobook.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not good. It's not. It's not good. It's not secretly good.
All right. So
I wonder if this is the first time we've had a 0, like a right down the middle kind of thing. I think there was one other one. It's slipping my mind right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping somebody is keeping track of these at home because we certainly aren't. The score. I don't remember what the scores were. All right. Well, do we want to talk about Can We Fix It, or do we want to talk about the musical real quick? What's a good order?
Let's do the musical first.
Okay. I really want to talk more. I know we've talked about it a little bit, but I want to talk about all the things that I've uncovered. So, all right. So, Love Never Dies is the musical version of The Phantom of Manhattan, ostensibly. And so because Forsyth was, basically just opera laundering this thing for his buddy Weber, the musical, I feel, is even lazier than you'd expect. Like Mary said, there's kind of a clear pre-90s, post-90s demarcation line for Weber's quality, and oh boy, is this an example. The score hangs on just the same few cadences from, the popular songs in the original musical. It just barely meanders away from the eponymous Phantom of the Opera song and the music of the night. It just barely wanders away from those two musical ideas. And
I'll tell you what, the knockoff Phantom of the Opera, though, the knockoff song Phantom of the Opera in Love Never Dies, which is called The Beauty Underneath, that is a banger. Yep. It is on my Halloween playlist.
Is it really? Okay.
It is.
Maybe we'll have to, I guess we can't play it due to
I think you can play less than 30 seconds legally.
No, it catches.
I don't even want to fuck with, honestly, it's not even worth it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wish
go
we
look
could.
it up, everybody.
Yeah, you all have access to the internet and YouTube. But I think what's worse than the musical quality in Love Never Dies is that Andrew Lloyd Webber just kind of took this whole thing from Ken Hill. And I am here to defend Ken Hill. So there was already a Phantom of the Opera musical in 1976. So 10 years before Lloyd Webber's version premieres in 86, Ken Hill already did this. And I think what's even worse is not only did Lloyd Webber clearly steal it because he went and saw the Ken Hill version and said, I just want to do that too. That happened. He was like, yo, Ken, I really like what you're doing here. Do you want to collab on a different version? And Ken was like, actually, yeah, I'm down with that. I've heard you're a famous man who does things. Let's work on this together. And then during production, he just cut him out of everything and was like, fuck you, and threw Ken Hill away and went on to steal his limelight from him and rip the curtain from him. And I am mad about it. I am very upset about this. And to just fucking add a little more insult to this injurious story, Webber claims the same origin point that Ken Hill claims for coming up with this idea. So Ken Hill says, yeah, I was in a used bookstore, found the Phantom of the Opera book by Gaston Leroux, and thought, this isn't a bad idea for a musical.
It's not.
Fucking Lloyd Webber says, so I was in a used bookstore and found the book and thought, this isn't a bad idea for a musical. No! You saw the fucking 1976 version, and you asked Ken Hill to do it with you, and then you took it from him, and then you also took his origin story. Oh my god, I hate Andrew Lloyd Webber so much.
He's very hateable.
I never realized this. I think this has happened more than once with him, where he has heard a musical and been like, oh, I'm just going to steal these base ideas and rework it. Which I think would be fine if he was honest about it, but he isn't really, and everybody just assumes he's this brilliant musical genius, when in reality, he's just finding things that already exist and just putting his name on them.
I mean,
this is my anti-Lloyd Webber rant.
Oh, absolutely. But, like, hear me out on this, though.
Yeah.
People out there, would you rather go see Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera or Ken Hill's Phantom of the Opera? I'd be interested to see Ken Hill's Phantom of the Opera, but I have a feeling there's a reason that one of them made $6 billion and the other one is mostly forgotten. I'm not, like, stealing ideas is wrong, sure, but he did improve.
Yeah, I mean, and sure, like, the Ken Hill version is different, and there, I mean, it was recorded. I believe there's recordings of the Ken Hill version. So I would love to hear that, because I would love to hear the difference in the music, and if Lloyd Webber really did lift the main ideas, or if he was just like, I'm going to completely do a different version of this. I actually don't know. I didn't have time to listen to it beforehand. So I don't know. Maybe. But
let's talk about Love Never Dies real quick.
Still pisses me off. Yeah, and then we get to, Love Never Dies.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
No. And I didn't make that up. It was Phantom of the Opera has literally made $6 billion. Oh,
wait a second. Sorry, one small point. Sarah Brightman, who was married to Webber at the time, turned down the lead role in the 76 version. And like that's how they ended up going to see it, because she was just like, oh, I turned this down, let's just go see it anyway. And that's how, so fucking, he stole the leading lady, he stole the origin story, he stole the music, probably stole some music from it. I don't know yet. I'm just sorry. I didn't know this. And now with this knowledge, my world is turned upside down.
I'm so sorry, but also congratulations.
Yes. Sorry. Yes.
It's good to have arch enemies out there. And Andrew Lloyd Webber is a great arch enemy for you to have, Paris. I support this.
I know, and I've worked on a professional production of Cats, and oh man, what a time that was. Anyway, we can talk about that another day.
Yeah. So, if people are curious, the basic plot differences between Phantom of Manhattan and Love Never Dies are quite myriad. I think that Phantom of Manhattan wouldn't necessarily work as a musical as it stands as a book. There's too many locations, it'd be too expensive. And there really are way too many superfluous characters.
Yeah, I mean, the cost of hiring Mammon and God to show up would be astronomical.
Jesus' rate is high, especially because like he's got a lot more wars to keep track of and like horrible things happening.
But I do truly think that in theory, you could have kept Darius. You could have gotten rid of the priest and just had it be Meg. Like there are elements, it would have been funny to keep the New York reporter. That would have been a nice, like, sort of narrator character. Comic relief. Other than that, you can pretty much jettison everything else, but like more or less keep the plot. However, Love Never Dies is like, nah, we're going to have no new characters except for the son. And so instead of Madame Giry sending the Phantom to New York and saying, good luck, goodbye, she and Meg follow the Phantom to New York. Why? Don't know. Right. They don't have a single scene together in the musical. There is no reason for these people to be loyal to him at all. He hasn't done shit for them. But for some reason, they both follow him to New York, where he does become a successful Coney Island funfair creator. And that's it. No stock market, no worshiping Mammon. He's just... Yeah.
I guess the reason would be that Madame Giry and Meg were basically his family in France.
Meg never met him. Like, yeah, her mom like kept him in the basement and kept him safe, but they didn't grow up together. She's not like his sister. No, they never met. And Meg has like just a few lines in the original. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. She gets this. Yeah, she gets a
tiny singing part, and that's it in the musical.
She's not important, but she is practically the main character of the sequel. And if anyone is curious, you can watch this musical. You can rent it on Amazon. They did a pro shot of it, of the Sydney version, the professional.
That's the one.
Sydney
That's
version.
the one.
That's the one that I made you watch.
Yes.
And the thing that is notable about this musical is that the set and costumes are freaking beautiful. Like the set is so cool. It's like all these moving pieces.
Oh yeah, you're right. It was
seamless,
very cool.
Simple, but like elaborate at the same time. And the costume, oh my God, I would wear every single one of those costumes from both the men and the women. They're just gorgeous.
That's
and
true.
The actors who are singing these parts in the filmed version, they're great. Like the Phantom,
they are
he's
very
like,
good.
He's so good. His voice is beautiful. And the woman that plays Meg, oh, she is my favorite. Like she is acting her ass off in that part, but none of it should have happened. That's it. They can't overcome it. No matter how good they are, no matter how amazing the production design, it shouldn't exist. And it's like the music's not good, but it's not notably bad. It's just like most of it's just kind of boring and forgettable. But it's not like worse than other musicals. It just shouldn't happen.
Well, it's just so derivative of the original, which is what really offends me. Like obviously it's fine if you're gonna have some stings from the original, but this is like it's really hanging on it.
The combination of such immense amounts of creative talent going into the production of this, and yet so little imagination is like a fiasco that you don't often see, and that is why I find it fascinating. Plus the fact that in this one, Raoul does have a penis, so they have to have another explanation for why she should choose the Phantom. So they land on Raoul is a drunk gambler who has lost all their money, and now Christine has to sing in order for them to pay off all of his gambling debts. And apparently Raoul can't do math because he doesn't know the kid isn't his.
Right.
So anyway.
Well, he was so drunk and gambling all the time, even though...
Right.
I don't know.
Which is so dumb.
How do we get there? How do we get there?
You can have Raoul be not the right one for Christine if you really want to, because he's just kind of boring, and like I said, he represents like stability in a normal life, whereas the Phantom represents artistic fulfillment and theoretically passion. So she can still be torn without Raoul being a literal cad, you know?
Yeah, it's just operating in such extremity and everything, right? Like, and I always want more nuance in things, but I guess we can't handle nuance in musicals.
There is no nuance.
Not allowed. Not allowed.
But my favorite character in the musical is Meg, who has been with the Phantom now for 10 years, being his main chorus girl in Coney Island.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, like Madame Giry is basically the manager / choreographer. And all these songs are written by the Phantom, which is very funny. And she, for some reason, never explained, is in love with the Phantom now. She wants his attention. She wants his approval. She wants to be his new Christine. Mm-hmm. And for a while, they're going along fine. Like, he doesn't talk about Christine. As far as I can tell, he doesn't actually talk to Meg ever at all. Like, they never seem to have a conversation. They don't have any scenes together.
I can only assume this is like a childhood jealousy thing, since Meg and Christine were best friends. So it's like, I want what Christine had.
But even that isn't real. Yeah, that would have been. You're right, Paris. That would have been a good idea. They don't use that idea either. When Meg hears that Christine is coming, she's like, "Oh, great, my friend. That's wonderful." And I have no negative feelings about that whatsoever. And it's not until the Phantom is like obsessed with Christine again that Meg is like, I don't like this. But also, there's no reason for Meg to be in love with the Phantom. None.
No, there's
none.
No.
So. Anyway, the Phantom does some mental math finally and realizes the kid is his. And he tells Christine, like, okay, I know I threatened you in order to get you here to sing this song, but you can go if you want. And also never tell the kid that I'm his dad because I feel like ashamed of it. And she's like, no, it's fine. I'll still sing the song, but I promise I'll never tell him. Great. And so he has a whole thing about like, he'll never know, but I will leave him all my money. Next scene, he taunts Raoul about the paternity of the child. Like, pick a lane, Phantom. There's an intermission, and then he comes and he's like, Raoul, did you ever notice that the kid doesn't really look like you? LOL. And Raoul's like, what? No.
Apparently I just erased the Love Never Dies musical from my mind for safety, because I don't remember any of this. Like, my body reacted and was like, nope, this is going in the hole.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Christine sings the song. Meg takes the child to the pier because it is established earlier that Meg really wants to go drown herself in the ocean.
Whoa, that's a weird choice. Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, and where she she gets them all, basically lures them all there with the kid, immediately gives the kid back, but then pulls out a gun and aims it at herself because she's like, finally, he will see me and I will kill myself in front of him.
Oh, wow.
And then the Phantom is left to talk a suicidal person off a ledge. What better person to accomplish this goal than the Phantom of the Opera?
I shouldn't laugh, but holy shit. I forgot about all of this.
Needless to say, he does not do a very good job. The gun goes off. Christine is shot. Tells the kid that Phantom is his dad. The end. Meg and Madame Giry run away, probably to be fugitives for the rest of their lives. Anyway.
Wait, Meg was feeling suicidal but shot Christine?
It was by accident. So, like, the Phantom, of course, says the wrong thing because he is bad at
Christine just getting shot by accident no matter what version is happening.
Yeah.
You just can't.
No, Darius. I guess that's true. Darius was aiming for the kid. But anyway, it's like he and Meg are struggling for the gun and it goes off. So, and it just happens to hit Christine because no matter what, Christine cannot live.
And we think Andrew Lloyd Webber is using Christine here as an analog for Sarah Brightman, who is at this point his ex-wife, and they had a very bad divorce.
Very acrimonious divorce, yes.
Do we know why their divorce was so messy?
Well, because they're both messy theater people. I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah. That's fair.
I don't actually know.
No further explanation needed.
Yeah, no. Yeah. I mean, Mary, much so than I, is involved in theater. I am a fringe theater interloper here and again, and I can confirm that is even at my distance that makes sense. Yeah, all right, sorry. I just wanted to talk about the musicals a little bit because they are the reason this book exists, and it's also the 86 Andrew Lloyd Webber version is the reason that people know the story of the Phantom of the Opera. And maybe Lon Chaney though helped a little bit before that. I think. I don't know.
I think Lon Chaney helped the book become more popular so that it would get translated into versions that can then be found by Ken Hill and Andrew Lloyd Webber decades later.
Right. Yeah. All right. Great. All right.
Can we fix it?
I don't know, Mary. What do you think? We're talking about, can we fix this book, The Phantom of Manhattan by
The Phantom of Manhattan.
Forsyth?
No, the premise is flawed, and I think that the book is as good as it could have been given the elements that he had to work with.
Given that Andrew Lloyd Webber had a gun pointed to his head the whole time and was like, right for me.
Andrew Lloyd Webber was like, I want the Phantom to go to Coney Island, become rich, and then he and Christine have another meetup. I don't know exactly how many details.
I want the Phantom to go to Coney Island. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, well, apparently Andrew Lloyd Webber was trying to think of places to set the sequel. He saw a documentary about Coney Island, and he's like, perfect. And he's right. I mean, honestly,
it's not a bad idea. Yeah.
It's not a bad idea. And I think it in practice, it doesn't really work that well. So I think the book is the best it could have been, frankly.
Yeah. And like you said, Lloyd Webber's kitten did try to save us.
He did. His name was Otto.
Deleted the entire score. The entire score of that kitten.
Yeah, it was I think it was 2007. So apparently Andrew Lloyd Webber doesn't believe in backups, even though they totally existed in 2007. The kid just hit the right combination on his digital keyboard that deleted everything he'd written up to that point.
Thanks, kitten.
Are you sure that's not? I mean, he's noted liar, right? So you sure?
Sure. I mean, yeah. This is reported by Andrew Lloyd Webber himself,
and then was like, "Yeah, my cat ate my homework."
This does sound particularly melodramatic.
Just copy pasted all all the old musical stuff into it. It's like, oh yeah, shit, I forgot to write that.
Dude, that is a really great explanation as to why the score is so heavily embedded in the original musical. Interesting.
I don't think it's heavily embedded enough. I don't think you're remembering it correctly. It's way more boring than the original. The music is more boring. But also
that's because it's just reusing the same passages over and over again from two songs.
Well, they have a couple of motifs from the first musical, but mostly it's all original music. And the most egregious problem with it, in my opinion, is that the song Love Never Dies, which is the culminate, it's such a beautiful song that Christine is tempted to stay and sing it because it's so beautiful. It's not a good song. It's exactly the same problem in Rent where they he's been bitching about this song that he just can't get right, and then finally he's able to sing his one perfect song, and it brings Mimi back to life. And it's like the worst song in the musical. It's boring.
Wait,
it's
what song is that?
The one when Mimi's dying and he's sings her the song. I don't remember what it's called.
Wow, I don't even remember it. That's how forgettable.
Yeah, it's of all the songs in Rent, it is the most forgettable, and yet it is built up as if it's the best song that this guy could possibly have written. Same thing. It's the same. It's hard to live up to that when it's a song that's so good that it's important to the plot how good it is,
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense. It's you got to make sure that one's a banger. I don't know. I just remember watching it with you and going, wow, he really just keeps reusing the same phrases over and over again, and it is not very good. Because, it doesn't, I feel like Love Never Dies never gets to, Masquerade. You never have this different idea that's brilliant and fun and exciting. As a notorious hater of musicals, actually, I love the Phantom of the Opera, the 86 Weber version. I think it's got great music in it. But then Love Never Dies is hey, have you heard of the Phantom of the Opera? And then they put it through a tin can and a string. That's how it feels. It just doesn't feel inspired or exciting at all.
Masquerade is so great because it's the first song you come back to after intermission. Right. So it's you've had all this melodrama up to now. You come back from intermission, boom, Masquerade, great, gets you right back into it.
We're pumped.
Love Never Dies comes back from intermission, and it's Raoul alone at a bar whining. That's the song that you come back from intermission.
Oh God, that's something.
It's him oh, I don't know why I'm such a jerk. God, I'm such a jerk. Ugh. And he's drinking alone. And it's just weird. This is this is the tone you want to set for Act 2. It's a strange choice.
Yeah, so however you cut it, however you slice it, it's all weird. We're not that into it. Chris, how do you feel? Can we fix this book? Can we fix this idea?
Yeah, we were talking about can we fix this somehow. I would think the same thing that I mentioned before, if Darius had been motivated by simple jealousy, since Eric was the only one who treated him like a normal person, you could have had that juxtaposition of Eric throwing Darius away as he experienced others throwing him away. It would add some significance to the Darius character and give us a little bit of something to chew on. That's my one suggestion. That's all
agree.
I have to say about that.
It's basically what they did in Love Never Dies, but it's substitute Darius for Meg. But it would work better with Darius.
But then they ruined it with weird things. Yeah. My suggestion is very similar. Take what Chris said and then cut out the Mammon and God cameos. We don't need that. We also don't need the Laffy Taffy Jones. We don't need extra reporters. There's 2 other critics that show up. We don't need them. Cut out the superfluous chapters. Also, as Mary said, the sort of the story is so weird. We get all these hearsay sort of moments instead of direct from the characters, which, if you are trying to get this whole busy New York City in 1906 kind of vibe, I guess that works, but it does come across as very contrived, especially when the chapters are hey, here's this guy we never heard of. We're going to give him a chapter because, I don't know, he ended up working that day and saw the Hall of Mirrors. It's no, just give us Christine's perspective. He does so much to just deny Christine a voice. And I hate that. If we are in the sequel, I want Christine's voice. I want Christine's perspective. I want more of what she's feeling and thinking instead of everyone telling us how she feels and thinks. So those are my suggestions. Also, please give Raoul his penis back. What a terrible idea. Good God. I can't talk enough about how I hate that plot point for so many reasons. Let's never do that again, please. Thank you.
Okay. Well, finally, here we are at the show closing. Thank you, Mary, for suggesting this book to us, and thank you for guesting on this episode.
Yeah, and for providing us the cassette that maybe we've harvested from. If not, just thank you, Mary, for being here. It was wonderful to have you. I love having you on the episodes.
You're welcome, and I'm sorry. And I will see if I can transfer some of it and send you clips. And if not, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Cool.
And thank you to our patrons and Ko-fi donors, like our bad bookworms, Anya, Ben, Donnie, Emily, Jakub, Jared, Lycoris, Renee, Scott, and Will. Our exacting editors, Kieran, David, D, Emmy, Funny Robot with Antennas, Greg, Harry, Seven, Martin, Root Beer Cutie, and the Ugly One. Our loathsome librarians, Veronica, Senior, Arant, Beast with the Least, Yanka, Luchek of the Void, the taco-eating unicorn of the Hot Springs, Patricia, Robin, and Austin, and our pesky publisher, Miles May, as well as our Ko-fi donors like Kiwi Thing and Martin F. and Brenna, who helped relieve us of our terrible books. If you want some physical copies of terrible books we've read for the show, you can buy them over on our Ko-fi page.
And we will sign them and dedicate them to you with a strange greeting.
Will anyone accept the challenge to become an ARC archivist this year? What heinous monstrous tome will you force us to read? All right, guys, I'm going back to my fucking basement dimension where I have all traps and things set up where if you want to just get outside, you have to talk to 3 alligators and get them to give up their mysterious pearls. That's how I feel like I have to get out of this podcast. It was a long one, so I clearly I wasn't following the right treasure map to get the fuck out of here.
Hey, there's a lot to talk about.
That's my fault.
No. There's a lot to talk about. This is a massively popular property, and therefore there's a lot of spin-offs. We got to talk about the musicals, the books, the ideas, the people who stole the ideas, maybe. We don't really know. Anyway, it was a great time. I guess... don't read this. I guess that's my last note to end on. Don't read this. Don't read this. You
right off into the sunset. Yeah. Don't do it.
Yeah,
don't do it.
This.
All right.
Not worth it.
Listen to it.
Listen to
the book.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Terrible Book Club. Terrible Book Club is an independent podcast produced by your hosts, Paris and Chris. Sound design and audio editing by Chris, with sound effects and music by Epidemic Sound and sometimes also Chris. Our theme song is Kiss by Yearn, which is, you guessed it, actually also Chris. You can find more of his soothing synthy sounds on Bandcamp at yearn.bandcamp.com. Do you want us to review a book of your choice on the show? Do you want access to some extra audio-visual weirdness? If so, become a patron at patreon.com/terriblebookclub. If you'd like to send us a one-time tip instead, you can do that at ko-fi.com/terriblebookclub. You can also support TBC for free by sharing the show on social media, following our accounts on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or Goodreads, telling your friends about your favorite episode, or by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or anywhere else on the internet. To send us book recommendations or your adorable pet photos, send an email to terriblebookclub@gmail.com.
He is here now. I can feel his presence. Master, great God Mammon, I am on my knees before you. I have served you as best as I have been able these many years, and have brought to your throne my earthly employer and all his stupendous wealth. I beg you to hear me, for I need your advice and help. I hear you, servant. What is your trouble? That man whom I serve here below. Something seems to have entered him that I cannot comprehend. Explain. Ever since I have known him, ever since I first cast my eyes on that hideous face, he has had but one obsession, which I have encouraged and fostered at every stage. In a world that he perceives as being uniformly hostile to him, he has only ever wanted to succeed. It was I who channeled that obsession into the making of money, and ever more money, and thus brought him to your service. Is it not so? You have done brilliantly, servant. Every day his wealth increases, and you ensure that it is dedicated to my service.
Forgive my doubting, Lord. I try so hard for true faith. Hear me now, I beg you, for I am bewildered and frightened. It is not the scholar, but the Irish farm boy that I was born. Please, listen and help me. I am here, Joseph. What disturbs your peace of mind? Oh, Lord, for the first time, I think I'm really frightened. I am afraid, but I do not know why. Fear? That is something of which I have personal knowledge. You, Lord, surely not. On the contrary, what do you think I felt when they tied my wrists above me to the flogging ring in the temple wall? I just did not imagine that you could feel fear. I was a man then, Joseph, with all a man's weaknesses and flaws. That was the whole point. And a man can feel great fear. So when they showed me the scourge with its knotted thongs set with fragments of iron and lead and told me what it would do, I cried from fear. I never thought of it that way, Lord. It was never